Greetings, everyone. It's been a while since I've made a video on this channel. Life's getting in the way a little bit, and I was kind of happy to see that today Wizards of the Coast has released a new Unearthed Arcana for quite a while now. I think the last one they came out with was for Sidekicks, and that was probably 2018 still. So yeah, they've been taking their time to do this next one, and Wizards of the Coast actually came. I mean, with the release of this new Anafakana, they sort of made a statement that I think even Jeremy Crawford has been saying about this, that they are now changing the schedule a little bit into focusing something, releasing new Anafakanas when they are ready, and they're still trying to stick to the once a month schedule, but they are not committing themselves to the whole second Monday of the month or something like that. So yeah, there'll be something to look for. I mean, there'll be something to change your mind about Anapakana, that it's going to be harder to predict when it's going to come out, and it's going to be harder to tell what is it going to be about. But these are just some housekeeping matters. I don't think will really have a really huge impact on how we take in these playtest materials. And if the reason for them for doing this is to make sure it's ready, it's like good enough to be ready, then I wouldn't mind waiting for the extra few weeks, just so that I can get the best version of the uh, Anafakana that they are ready to put out. So this month, February 2019, the Anafakana would be the Artificer Revisited. And if you recall, that Wizards of the Coast actually had produced an Arcana of the Artificer from Eberron. Uh, I'm not sure of the exact date, based on my understanding, it was sometime in 2017, maybe even before the release of the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. So I believe the version that is in Wayfinders is sort of like the modified version from the first Anafakana of the Artificer. And I have not read the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. I haven't really purchased it, because I was thinking like it's still a living playtest document, and I much rather have an official document of Eberron uh, release before I commit myself to another campaign setting of D&D. So it's 2017. It's 2 years later, and they haven't. I believe they have been talking about releasing a new Artificer, Anafakana for quite a while, and it's probably one of the most highly anticipated Anafakanas, maybe as of now, uh, and I've managed to just glean through some basics of it. That's why I'm doing this video, just to get into more in-depth look into reading every feature and understanding it and thinking about it. See uh, how different it is right now. And I will have to say, like, on the surface level, it looks like there is actually quite a number of drastic changes being made to the new Artificer compared to the old one. I can't say for the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron, but it'll be this is almost treated like a relatively new class, a subclass. Yeah, I would say that, yeah, it's a class. Uh, than what was previous rendition. So even though there are some comparisons that can be made between the two, some class features will still have similarities. But I think it's much better to go in this with, like, a blank slate. I'm only doing the comparisons between this Artificer and the old Artificer just for interest, like just to take note. Not really just to compare them on the same level, so to speak. So I think let's just get into it. Let me know if you think this camera angle is a little odd, and I'm just trying something out new, because this is probably less stressful for me to talk to the camera and face the screen at the same time. Yeah, so let's just get right into it. So the Anaf Arcana for the new Artificer is 10 pages long compared to the old Artificer, which was 7 pages long. Uh, Now, in the old Artificer document, it seems to me that they were trying to make the Artificer class applicable to any world, any setting in Dungeons and Dragons. But in the Arcana, in this latest Arcana, it seems like they're trying to focus it more with the lore of Eberron. So therefore, the class description seems to be more written towards the Eberron's uh, description or flavor of the artificer compared to what are artificers like in general. So okay. So masters of unlocking magic in everyday objects, artificers are supreme inventors. They see magic as a complex system waiting to be decoded and controlled. Artificers use tools to channel arcane power, crafting temporary and permanent magical objects to cast a spell. An artificer could use alchemist supplies to create a potent elixir, calligrapher supplies to inscribe a sigil of power or an allied armor, or tinkerer's tools to craft a temporary charm. The magic artificers is tied to their tools and their talents. Now this is yeah, just in the opening description alone, that's probably like the main idea behind the artificer uh, that the artificers are very tied to their tools, and I was just going through the surface documents. They have a lot of class features that rely heavily on their tools, like their tools could act as spellcasting foci, and they are some of the class features would state specifically like if you have this tool you can do this, you must have this tool to do that, or you can cast certain spells if you can cast certain spells without spending a spell slot if you have that particular tool. So yeah, so that I it's a very interesting approach to the artificer because tools in D&D 5e in my experience doesn't seem to have a lot of usage. I mean like it's not really a strong main part of any of the classes mechanics. It's more like a additional feature or ability for characters or any character, because depending on the proficiency with their tools, for any character they can use, and they can just use it to make it more powerful. And even though Zenata's guide has like additional expanded use of uh, of how tools can be used, I still think like it's very interesting to have a class that is designed around tools. So we'll just see how the rest as we go through. We'll see how the tools really come into play. All right, arcane science. In the world of Eberron, arcane magic has been harnessed as a form of science and deployed throughout society. Artificers reflect this development. Their knowledge of magical devices and their ability to infuse mundane items with magical energy allows the grand magical objects projects of Eberron to continue running. During the last war, artificers were marshaled on a massive scale. Many lives were saved because of the inventions of brave artificers, but also countless lives were lost because of the mass destruction the artificers' creation unleashed. So yeah, like I said, this one ties very strongly to the lore of Eberron. And I guess I kind of like that direction in a way, because that was how I was introduced to the Artificer when it first came out in 3.5. And yeah, they a lot of people, some I know, especially people who are new to Eberron or new to D&D, they may make the assumption that Artificer is supposed to be like like a very generic thing. They're supposed to be like the inventors of D&D, the gnomish tinkerers, that sort of thing. But my personal attachment with the Artificer is really heavily tied to Eberron, like how Eberron defines the Artificer. And I really like that Wizards of the Coast is going more towards the direction of using the Artificer definition rather than the generic fantasy definition of artificers, or tinkerers, or whatever you call them. All right, seekers of new knowledge, new lore. Nothing excites an artificer quite like uncovering a new metal or discovering a source of elemental energy. In artificer circles, new inventions and strange discoveries create the most excitement. Artificers who wish to make a mark must find something fresh rather than uncover someone else's work. This drive for novelty pushes artificers to become adventurers. Eberron's main travel routes are populated regions that have long since been explored. Thus, artificers take the edge of civilization in hopes of making the next grand discovery in arcane research. So, this particular piece of description fits. It gives a lot of meaning to the artificer's role in the Eberron campaign setting, and in general campaigns in general, like that is their motivation. Their motivation is to always go out and seek new things. So that easily plays in with like why they would go out adventuring to places like Zendrick, and they find some old artificer schemas, and just or even just be at the forefront, like staying within certain nations just so that they can do their work. And I think like places like Braylon or on there, maybe not so much on there. I mean, well, maybe on there because it's a somewhat magical nation, so there is a lot of like research going on, uh, and definitely the houses like House Caniff will definitely employ a lot of artificers, and they will definitely try to push the edge of their their technology, so to speak. All right. And this is just all the lore bits of artificers, and I'm now just going back into looking at how the old artificers used to be described. They used to describe them as cunning inventors. Every artificer is defined by a specific craft. Artificers see mastering the basic methods of craft as a first step to progress. The invention of new methods and approaches. Some artificers are engineers, students of invention and warfare who craft readily firearms and can augment with magic. Other artificers are alchemists using their knowledge. So and instead of seekers of new lore and practicing arcane science, uh, the old artificer was more emphasized on inventions and also rivalry between the artificers. Like artificers were more interested in one upping each other with with the latest invention, rather than looking for new ideas and new innovations. So it's an interesting. It's I mean most maybe some people don't really care about this sort of thing, but I feel like this is a very interesting change in perspective of how the artificer is sort of reconceived in this new revisited version rather than the old one. All right. So creating an artificer, when creating an artificer character, yeah, I'm reading the new one right now. Think about your character's background and drive for adventure. Does the character have a rival? What is the character's relationship with the artisan or artificer who taught the basics of the craft? Talk to your DM about the role played by artificers in the campaign and what sort of organizations and PCs you might have ties to. Uh, yeah, so this is pretty much just copy and pasted from the old one. The quick build also seems to be the same. So the quick build suggests that the primary ability score is intelligence, followed by constitution, dexterity, and you take the guild artisan background. So yeah, it's pretty much the same uh, in the old one. Now, but the new one has a sidebar for artificers in other worlds. Everyone is the world mode associated with artificers, yet the class can be found throughout the multiverse. In the Forgotten Realms, for example, the island of Lantern is home to many artificers, fine, the gnomes, gnome inventors, tinkerers. And in the world of Dragonlance, tinker gnomes are often members of this class. The strange technologies in the barrier peaks of the world of Greyhawk has inspired some folk to walk the path of artificer, and in Mistara, various nations employ artificers to keep airships and wonder wonders. So yeah, this basically just talks about how artificers can fit in different Dungeons and Dragons settings, compared to in the previous version of the UA. They sort of like shoehorn in or mention artificers in different worlds and how they. That's why it's more generic, rather than in this revisited version where it's more specifically tied to Eberron. All right, so let's get into the meat of the class, which is obviously the class features. Uh, Hit points 1d8 per artificer level. Let's say the same. Uh, uh, Hit points is 1d8, therefore it's 8 plus Constitution modifier at level 1, and every level is 1d8 or 5 plus Constitution modifier. Now the first difference we have is right here. It's rather minor, but I guess it's worth mentioning. The proficiencies. So in the new revisited version, the artificer is proficient in light armor, medium armor, and shields, as compared to the previous version, which was not proficient in shields. Same armor proficiencies, but not proficient in shields. So that sort of it's not a big difference, but it sort of adds a layer to what you can do with shields, because later it comes on into later aspects when what artificers can do to certain objects. So shields would probably be an additional thing they can infuse on and sort of thing. Um, in the revisited version, they are proficient with simple weapons, hand crossbows, heavy crossbows, as compared to the previous version was only proficient with simple weapons. So that's additional 2 weapons more for the artificer. I guess they're kind of like that's somewhat similar to the proficiencies of the rogue, though not exactly. But hand crossbow is not a it's not a proficiency that's regularly given. Let me just double check that. Yeah. The rogue is the rogue only has long sword rapiers and short bows, short swords in addition to what the artificers have. That's yeah. You wouldn't I wouldn't be expecting the artificer to be have the same proficiencies as rogue. Even classes like the wizards, like the spellcasting classes, they are not proficient with hand crossbows. So it's a pretty rare proficiency, to be honest. Hand crossbows, uh, for other classes. I believe the warlock, and that's one thing about the artificer is that you're gonna see a lot of, other than comparison with the old artificer UA, you're gonna see a lot of comparisons of the artificer with the warlock, which is probably like the second closest class in terms of its structure and design, and basically its ideas. So it's definitely better than the warlock because the warlock is only proficient with light armor, the artificer is proficient with light and medium and shield, and the warlock is only proficient with simple weapons, which is similar to the previous version of that artificer, but whereas the new artificer has a hand crossbow and heavy crossbow added on to it. All right. Saving throws. Saving throws looks, I guess, should be pretty much the same. Constitution Intelligence and compared to Constitution Intelligence. All right. The new Artificer Revisited only can choose 2 skills compared to the previous one, which can choose 3 skills. And even the skill list is slightly different. The Revisited ones can choose from Arcana, History, Investigation, Medicine, Nature, Perception, Sleight of Hand. It's 7 compared to the previous version, which could choose from Arcana, Deception, which is not there, History, Investigations, say Medicine, Nature. Instead of Perception, the previous version gets Religion and Sleight of Hand. So they switched it a little bit. They took out Deception. They switched Religion for Perception. Not really sure if I have anything to say about that. Because I would expect like Arcana, History, uh, maybe some mm, not, what else would I expect? Some Arcana, History is probably like just the good ones, good enough for me to be proficient in. Let me see, is there any other skills that I would have liked it to have? Investigation, yes, it's already there. Medicine is already there. Religion. So I guess in the previous version, why they put in religion is because it's one of the so-called knowledge skills, but taking out this one. Well, it doesn't really make a. I don't really think it makes that much of a difference. Yeah, so I have no real problem with the new skill list compared to the old skill list. The the main thing I guess that would be worth uh, looking into is the difference between choosing 2 skills over 1 skill. So I'm just gonna look into Warlock, and Warlock gets two skills. Rogue obviously has most. Your rogue gets to choose 4. So I'm not sure if there's any other class that allows you to choose uh, 3 skills. The bar allows to choose 3. Yeah, choose any 3. So the previous version was more like a hybrid of bar mixed with warlock, but now they're sticking into more warlock based design. Does it make that huge much of a difference? I don't see it yet. I think 3 skills doesn't. I mean, obviously people would like 3 skills more than 2, but with is 2 such a game changing deal for the new artificer that becomes underpowered as a result? I don't think so. I think there's a fairer trade made for it. So let's continue on. Equipment. Uh, Not something that we would really pay attention to, but there are actually some actual differences between the two versions. So the revisited ones allows you to take any 2 simple weapons, a light crossbow and 20 bolts, studded leather armor or scale mail, thieves tools and dungeon's pack. As compared to the previous version, it allows you to take a hand axe and a light hammer, or any 2 simple weapons. So a hand axe and a light hammer are simple weapons, if I'm not mistaken. Light hammer and hand axe, they are simple weapons, so it doesn't really make any much sense to repeat, uh, 2 simple weapons and then hand axe and light hammer. Just say 2 simple weapons and you save a lot of space. you save some space. Crossbow bolts, light crossbow and 20 volts is the same. Started at the scale armor, the same. Thieves Tool Engineer's Pack is the same. So the first tool that they get is the Thieves Tools, and which it'll grow, or it'll grow later on when they start subclassing into, when they pick their first subclass. All right. So the starting goal they get, it's not mentioned in the previous version, but it's mentioned in the new version, which is 5d4 times 10. All right. Okay, this is something. There's a new sidebar in the new version. It's called the optional rule, firearm proficiency. The creation and operation of gunpowder weapons have been discovered in various corners of the D&D multiverse. If your dungeon master uses the rules on firearms in the Dungeon Master's Guide, page 267, and your artificer has been exposed to the operation of such weapons, your artificer is proficient with them. So I guess it just comes with the territory. Like if you are using the variant of the firearms, then yeah, they just enhances the proficiency list of the artificer, the new one. All right. So I'm just gonna give a brief rundown, a brief look through the class feature table between the two versions, and we are going to see a lot of differences here. This is where all the most of the class redesign is quite prevalent. So in the old version, in level 1 you had a feature called Artificer Specialist and Magic Item Analysis, and you do not see this in the new version anymore. You do see Artificer Specialist, which is a subclass. Instead of level 1, they now get it at level 3, so which makes it in line with things like rogues, not rogues, fighters. I don't believe the warlock gets their boons. They get their otherworldly patron at level 1, but they get their boons at level 3. So it's kind of in line with the design of warlock in some ways. All right. So you have magical tinkering and spell casting. And in the old version, you do not get spellcasting till you're level 3, but in the new version, you get your spellcasting at level 1. So that puts them back in line with that puts them closer to in the design of warlocks. All right. So what else do we have? The new in level 2 of the old one, you get 2 expertise and wondrous invention. In level 2 of the new one, you only get a thing called infused item. So I think that's one major difference already, because I remember I did play the UA of the old Artificer before in a one shot, and I remember that wondrous invention was something like you could create like a simple magical item. Yeah. Which now that I looked at it, there is a different version of this in the new one. I forgot what they call it by a different name, but it so effectively lets you create a magical item for like a certain amount of time or something like that. I'm sure we'll bump into it when we get into it, when we reach that class feature. So let's go back. Okay, so tool expertise. Tool expertise is at level 2 for the old one, but tool expertise is now at level 3 for the revisited Artificer. At level 4 you have police squad improvement, which is the same as everyone else. You have infused magic in the old one, which it's no longer in the new one. I'm not sure if they changed, like they made infused item the new version of infused magic in the previous one. We'll have to see when we get to it. Okay, level 5, the new Artificer gets arcane armament, which is effectively extra attack. But it's slightly different. It's slightly worded a bit differently, and acts a bit differently mechanically as well, which the previous Artificer did not have. They had superior attunement, they had wondrous invention, they had mechanical servant, which so mechanical servant is a level 6 for the previous Artificer, and this is something they totally took out for the new version. There is no more so-called mechanical companion anymore in the new Artificer, which personally I like that. I'm not sure if the previous versions in 3.5 of Artificer when they were introduced had that sort of like mechanical companion. I believe it was not really the idea of that artificers actually can create mechanical companions by default, without taking some sort of variant of it. But yeah, that's why I'm saying it sticks closer to the Eberron lore more than a more generic understanding of what artificers do. All right. Uh, at level 7, they get both versions get nothing. Level 8, ability score improvement. Level 9, so at level 9, at the previous version has an artificer specialist feature. But in the new one, it's blank. It's an empty level. All right, level 10. Level 10, the previous one gets Wondrous Invention, and now that does not exist anymore in the new one, but they get a thing called the White Cantrip for the Job, uh, which is a Artificer class. Like all Artificers get this. It's not a subclass ability. Uh, yeah, actually now, yeah, there's something I wanna like run through also as well as I get into through the table, but I'm starting to notice of something that I needed to check as well. All right, level 10 is a blank level for both. Level 12 is ability score improvement for both. Level 13 is a blank level for both. Level 14, they both get the Artificer Specialist. Level 15 is a blank level for the new one. The 15th level for the old one gets Superior Attunement, Wondrous Invention, which neither exists. Both doesn't exist anymore in the new one. 16 level is ability score improvement. Level 17 is a blank level for the new one, but compared to the previous one, which has Artificer Specialist. Level 18. So level 18 is interesting. Level 18 in the previous one was an ability score improvement, but it's no longer an ability score improvement in the new one. Instead, they get a feature called Spell Storing Item, which is, if I remember it correctly, it's a pretty good class feature, but we'll get to that. But instead, they get their next ability score improvement at level 19, which I think is a bit later than most classes, if I believe correctly. I think most classes would get their ability score improvement by 18, the last one at 18, even the fighter. Oh no, it's the same with everyone else. So okay, so I guess they realized that maybe it was a mistake. They realized in the previous version that why is the Artificer getting his last ability score improvement earlier than everyone else, and then so just to sort of streamline it and make it the same with every other class. Uh, I'm not really expecting him to get more ability score improvements than the other classes. Let me just do a quick count. One, two, three, four. Yeah, five. That should be right. Should be right. One, two, three. Right. Yeah, that should be right. It's the same for everyone else. So at level 20, both artificers get Soul Artifice, and I think they might have changed. They might have kept the same name, but they might have changed the feature entirely in terms of what it does, and Wondrous Invention. So basically, comparing the two artificers is that there's no such class feature called Wondrous Invention. There's no such feature called Mechanical Servant. There's no such class feature called Superior Attunement. And the new class features that are in and magic item analysis is also completely taken out. So the new class features that you'll find in the revisited ones is magical tinkering, arcane armament, the right cantrip for the job, spell storing item. Is there anything else I missed? And infuse item. Yeah. So those are the new class features. I haven't done a countdown of them yet. Let me just see if I can really quickly whip up the differences. Nah, I don't think it really matters. Well, let me just list down all the class features of the new Artificer. Let me just give a quick see if I can get magical tinkering. I might have should have done this in before starting the stream, but I figured that it's better for you guys to see how I look into classes as I read through them. This shouldn't take long. Artificer specialist. Cantrip for the draw. So it seems to me that the new Artificer has altogether 10 class features, 10 uniquely named class features, not including, I'm not counting those that are repeated for like ability score improvements, Artificer specialists. Is there anything else? Yeah, I think those are the only ones that are repeated. So there are totally of a total number of 10 class features that the new Artificer has. Alright, so let's just, what else is there different in the table? So, but something else that I noticed is very different in the two versions of Artificer is that the new Artificer has a new thing called infusions. Just think of it as like invocations of warlocks. It's a sort of thing you can cast like a certain limited times. I think it's like between a long rest. So yeah, they pretty much effectively work like warlock invocations, but they just do different things. And infusion is actually a very strong term that was used in a very specific term used in the 3.5 days of when the Artificer was first introduced. And I think it plays really well with that mechanic. Like uh, it's a very good way to port that infusion idea from 3.5 into 5e. So that's why I'm like I said, it because of its basic idea that it's trying to get closer to the Eberron version definition of it. Yeah, I definitely agree that there should be more infusions rather than spells. Although artificers do have a different spell list, and even in 3.5 days, they even like had entire different spells altogether. So I definitely lean towards like I really like this idea of infusions, and we'll see what they do later on. But yeah, that's one design element that I totally agree with. Uh, all right, now another thing, and together with infusions, there is a limited amount of how many items that can infuse. That's an addition. That's trickier compared to the warlock because the warlock doesn't have a limit to how many things they can affect. Uh, I'm I'm generally always on the side that doesn't like things to require more tracking. But I think this is a necessary evil to come with the infusions because they infuse things, they infuse objects, they infuse magical non-magical objects to perform magical things, and therefore I think there should be a certain amount of limit to how many things they can infuse before it gets broken by a player who says, all right, I want to infuse everything I see, and it was just like, like I'm just gonna like long rest every day and infuse one object a day, and next thing I know I'm like I have hundreds of objects that's infused, that each of them can do very specific things. So yeah, I will have to say like it puts a cap. It's good to have a cap onto the limits of items that can be infused. And just for comparison's sake, I'm just going to look at how the infusion table progresses for the Artificer compared with the Walls invocations. And you're going to see some interesting numbers here. Let me just pull it up. Alright. So the number of infusions that the Artificer knows at level 1 is 0. And then it builds up. It starts with 3 at level 2 up until level 4. At level 4 it learns 4, it knows 4 infusions up to level 7 at 5. And then level 11 6, level 15 7, level 19 8. Which is actually slightly higher compared to the Warlock's table of progression for invocations. So the Warlock gets none at first level. They get 2, only 2. At second level, up to 5th, they get 3, which is earlier than the Artificer, which only gets at 6. Then at level 7, the Warlock knows 4. The Artificer only knows 4 at level 11, so they actually get stuck with 3 for quite a number of levels. Uh, Level 9, the Warlock gets 5. The Artificer only gets his 5th one at level 16, which is a long way off, really long way off. Uh, oh, sorry, I might have been looking at the wrong 7. No, at level 15. Level 15, they get their 7th at the Artificer, which is the same with the Warlock. They get their 6th infusion at level 11, which is later than the Warlock, which is earlier than the Warlock at level 12. They get their 5th infusion at level 7, which is earlier than the Warlock at level 9. Alright. But then again, you have to understand that the Artificer gets one more infusion than the Warlock compared to the Artificer start with 3 and the Warlock starts with 2. So they basically is always more than the Warlock by 1, up until they reach Warlock at level 18 where he gets his 8th invocation, and the Warlock caps out his 8th at level 19. So the maximum number of infusion and the Warlock and the Warlock invocations are exactly the same at 8. The progression is different, so you do want to take note of that as a DM. And the objects they can infuse, the Artificer can always infuse, is up to 5. And they do get stuck with certain numbers quite long. I think it's on about an average about 4 to 5 levels per number. So the level 2 they stuck for it for 4 levels. At level 3 they stuck to it for 4 levels. At level 4, 4 items are stuck with 5 levels, and 5 items are stuck at 5 levels. So the Artificer caps out his number of infused items at level 17, which is probably where most class features capped out at the same time. Alright, another major difference between the old Artificer and the new Artificer is the cantrips. So the previous Artificer did not have cantrips. They used a source. They had spells no, and they did not have the spells they know started at first level. They did not know any cantrips. So the Artificer now knows cantrips, and I'm not sure which table they are using for this cantrips. No, I have a feeling it might be the Arcane Trickster. So let me just look through their tables. No, and also not to mention that the Artificer can cast spells from first level compared to the previous version, which was at third level. Yeah, third level. So I think this is a very unique class design for 5e, where you have a class that can't cast magic. Wait, they might be following. Yeah, I think they're following the Warlock progression. Cantrips, no. Alright, so I think the best comparison would be the Warlock. But even then, you can see the difference in numbers. Like the Warlock gets 2 cantrips up to level 3, but the Artificer is stuck with 2 cantrips up to level 8. That's a really big difference. And the Artificer, no, level 9, sorry. They're stuck with 2 cantrips up to level 9. While the Warlock gets his 3rd cantrip at level 4. So that's huge. That's a really huge difference. So let's see what else is distinctive. The Artificer gets his 3rd cantrip at level 10, and he's stuck with it until level 13. Whereas the Warlock gets his 3rd cantrip at level 4 up to level 9. So by the time the Warlock gets his 4th cantrip at level 10, the Artificer only starts with his 3rd cantrip. I think there's a very good reason for this, because you're going to see one class feature later on that it's probably one of the most, in my book, one of the most broken abilities of the Artificer, which I think really outshines all the other spellcasters and classes in D&D 5e. So I think there is a reason why they they make the progression of cantrips known really slow for the Artificer as compared to the Warlock. But let's see where they cap off. So Artificer caps off 4 cantrips known. The maximum number they will know is 4. at level 14, whereas the Warlock will cap that off by level 10. But later when you look at the class feature I'm talking about, you will see that the Artificer is 100% more flexible than the Warlock in terms of the cantrip node. So even though you see that their numbers of cantrip node is only 4, uh, they actually know a lot more than the Warlock, and they are actually able to do more things than the Warlock at 4. And even though the Warlock gets it early, they are definitely less flexible than the less versatile than the Artificer. So yeah, that's just how crazy it is. All right. Now, Artificer, as his previous version. All right. So another major difference with the previous Artificer and the new Artificer is the spell level and spell slots. The new Artificer can cast spells up to level 5, same with the Warlock, compared to the previous version which only can cast up to level 4. So that's a huge power boost in terms of spells. And like I said, the Artificer is looking more and more closer to the Warlock. The best comparison is always with the Warlock. And that's my first impression when I saw it. It's not even like close to like even the Ranger or the Paladins, I think. Although having said that, yeah, although having said that, uh, I think there might be some interest in comparing the spell slot progression between the new Artificer with the Ranger and Paladin and compare it that with the Warlock. Although I'm more inclined to think that the Artificer is more of a spellcasting class, rather than something that's like more hybrid like for Rangers and Paladins. And do remember that Rangers and Paladins don't get to cast spells early on up until they start their casting at level 2, which is different from the Warlock and the Artificer. So I'm going to just compare, for comparison's sake, I'm just going to compare the Warlock's spell slot progression table with the Artificer's one first, because I think that's the most relevant. So let me see. Oh wait, am I looking at the right one? Spell slots. All right. So I don't think that the Artificer. I mean, the Warlock spellcasting ability is always the most unique one, because in the sense that you can't choose your slots. You have a number of slots, and you always cast at a certain class at a certain spell level. So that's unique to every other spellcasting class which has a number of slots at a certain number of level. So maybe the Warlock would not be the best comparison for this, because, or in terms of number of slots, because their slots are shared among all spell levels. So I guess I'm really forced to compare that with the Ranger and the Paladin, but that would be a very flawed comparison, given how Artificers can cast spells from level 1. So I guess there's not really a good comparison to make here. Although I would have to, well, is the difference drastic enough? 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 4, 2. So alright, I think, just on a glance, looking at this right now, it seems to be safe to say that the progression level of spell slots is very similar to the Ranger, and most likely the Paladin as well. So just imagine that it's using the Ranger spell progression, but instead of only being able to cast spells at level 2, the Artificer can cast 2 spells at level 1 at first level. That seems to be the only addition I'm seeing right now. Other than that, it seems almost exactly the same. So yeah, so it's this makes it a very unique class. It's a Warlock using a Ranger's Paladin spell progression that can cast 2 additional spells. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if that's a good idea to use a different class's progression level. Why not stick with the Warlocks? Why not stick with the Warlock spell slot progression for the Artificer? Since the Artificer is pretty much built You know, they have the infusion, which is the same with the evocations. They have cantrips. Uh, because rangers and paladins don't have cantrips, so that's one thing. Hmm. And even like looking at the arcane trickster, their cantrip progression is lots. It's different from. It's very different from the artificers. Quite fast too, as well too. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what they're going with this. Is it a good idea? Maybe in terms of balance, I think it's pretty solid. Like I don't see any real problems why the artificer should have a similar progression with the ranger paladin. I'm not seeing anything drastic. Nothing comes to mind in terms of like being very drastic. It's just very. It just makes it very unique, but nothing really game changing in terms of that. So yeah, so I think let's get into the actual class features themselves one by one, and this is going to be, like I said, you know, Unearthing Arcana videos like this is definitely going to be very long because there's a lot of analysis being involved, being done as I go through the thing, and I definitely tire myself doing this sort of thing. But anyways, that's the fun of it. All right. So I'm not sure if I want to take piecemeal comparisons between all the class features in the new one and the old one. I think I will only do the comparisons if there is a similar class feature that is named in the previous version. If it's a completely new class feature, then I'll just take it as it is without any comparisons. So let's start with the first class feature of the new Artificer, which is called Magical Tinkering. At first level, you learn how to invest a spark of magic in objects that would otherwise be mundane. To use this ability, you must have a thief's tools, tinker's tools, or other artisan tool in hand. You then touch a tiny non-magical object as an action and give one of the following magical properties of your choice. The object sheds bright light in 5-foot radius and dim light for an additional 5 feet. Whenever tapped by a creature, the object emits a recorded message that can be heard up to 10 feet away. You utter the message when you bestow this property of the object, and the recording can be no more than 6 seconds long. The object continuously emits your choice of an odor or a non-verbal sound, wind waves, chirping, or the like. The chosen phenomenon is perceivable up to 10 feet away. A static visual effect appears on one of the object's surfaces. This effect can be a picture, up to 25 words of text, lines, and shapes, or a mixture of these elements as you like. The chosen property lasts indefinitely. As an action, you can touch the object and end the property early. You can give the magic of this feature to multiple objects, touching one object each time you use the feature, and a single object can bear only one of the properties at a time. The maximum number of objects you can affect with the feature at one time equal to intelligence modifier, minimum of one object. If you try to exceed your maximum, the oldest property immediately ends and then the new property applies. Okay. So that's magical tinkering. That's the first one they get at level 1. Sounds like a very mundane use, like a mundane class feature. You can do it equal to amount of times of intelligence modifier, and only one object can have one property, so you can't stack properties onto the same object. They last indefinitely until you exceed the maximum number, and this has nothing to do with the infused item progression table. This reads to me like it's either like it's trying to imitate a spell. Either prestidigitation or prestidigitation. No, it does not exactly. Well, yeah, it's not exactly prestidigitation. Neither is it thaumaturgy. I doubt it will be druidcraft. Hands, yeah, yeah, no, generally, it's generally its own thing. It's not trying to imitate a spell. I guess you can say it feels a bit like a stitched version of between druidcraft, prestidigitation, and thaumaturgy, but it's definitely its own thing. Uh, and it's a first level ability. It's one of those that it's not combat focused, which is something I don't mind. I think there should be more class features that are less combat focused. Uh, And this one sort of like puts it in the creativity of onto the player. Like this is really depends on how you use it. I mean, on a surface level, I do like some of the things it can do that I know as a DM I would definitely be interested in using, like the recorded message. You know, like I can definitely now we can do the whole Star Wars Princess Leia message thing, and 6 seconds long. And I actually like this idea that you can utter the message, and the recording can be no more than 6 seconds long rather than a number of words. So it's not exactly a sending uh, or a message spell, because it's determined by time. Uh, do Would there be other uses in the adventuring day? I would say, yeah, there probably is. Like emitting of noises and non-verbal sounds and odors. I can definitely see a lot of players trying to use that as a good distraction, and it has a perceivable effect up to 10 feet. So that's going to be used quite a bit. The light is obviously is a very good magical tool, and there's the whole visual thing appearing on this object surface. So yeah, the thing is, one creative use of this class feature will be just doing it on any object, right, that you randomly find. Like if you see a mirror, you just touch it, and you just tinker it, and you just do the effect, and if you leave the mirror behind, you're not worried about leaving the things that you tinker behind, because it's gonna end if you just keep on replacing numbers. So I guess that's quite abuse. They can be used abusively, but other than that, I think that I have no real problems with the class feature as a whole, because they have very specific restrictions. You must have the tools, and specifically thieves tools, tinker tools, and artisan tools. It must be a tiny non-magical object. It uses an action, so which you most likely won't be doing during, you know, uh, in combat. But it's the usage is both, it's well limited, like it has very strict parameters. At the same time, that's within those parameters there's a wide space of creative use for the player. So yeah, I definitely, does it is it like a class feature that screams Artificer? I would say in terms of direction, yes. In terms of actual application, not really. But as because it's only your first level class feature, what else do you expect it to do? So I'm definitely happy for it to just be as it is. Uh, and what does the previous Artificer get at first level? They get magic item analysis, which helps them identify and detect magic, uh, and can cast those as rituals, which I definitely take magical tinkering over magic item analysis. Uh, Although, to be honest, I might have preferred it if they had both. But I guess you can't have too many class features at first level. Alright, so let's move on to the next class feature, which is spellcasting. So this is probably where things gets a little bit interesting, because spellcasting looks a little bit differently than the other classes of D&D so far. You have studied the workings of magic, how to channel it through objects, and how to awaken it within them. As a result, you have gained unlimited ability to cast spells. To observers, you don't appear to be casting spells in a conventional way. You look as if you're producing wonders through various items. Good flavor, definitely something to keep in mind if you're role playing as an artificer. Tools required. You produce your artificer spells through your tools. You must have a spellcasting focus, specifically thieves tools or some kind of artisan tools. So it's the first. I think this is the first time you will see tools being used as a spellcasting focus, as specifically thieves tools and artisan tools. In hand, when you cast any spell with this spellcasting feature, you must be proficient with the tool to use it this way. See player proficiency. See chapter 5 equipment in the player's handbook for description of these tools. After you gain the infused item feature at second level, you can also use any item bearing one of your infusion as a spellcasting focus. So besides tools, they can also the artificer can sort of create their own spellcasting focus by level 2. Alright. Cantrips. At first level, you know 2 cantrips of your choice from the Artificer spell list below. At higher levels, you learn additional Artificer cantrip of your choice as shown in cantrip known column of the Artificer table. When you gain a level, you can replace one Artificer cantrip you know with another cantrip from the Artificer spell list. Yeah, right, standard stuff. Preparing and casting spells. So I think this is also one major difference between the new Artificer and the old Artificer. In the old Artificer, the previous one, you had spells known. So that makes them in line with the sorcerer's way of casting spells and the progression of spells they know and what they can cast. But in the Artificer, it seems to me it's going closer to the Ranger, Paladin, Cleric, which means they basically know all the spells and it's just a matter of preparing which spells you want. This is a huge leap. This is a huge leap in terms of spell casting for the between the two Artificer versions. And in my book, the preparer is always way more versatile than the one that has spells known. Uh, is to be honest, I feel that spells known is closer to the Eberron version, 3.5 version of the Artificer. Uh, but I think the designers are going for something to trying to make the Artificer a bit more versatile than it looks. And you're going to see that in the class feature that I mentioned about cantrips. So it feels in line with a design idea, but I definitely feel like this is a very big power up for the new version of the Artificer. Are there any exceptions to this rule that you do not see anywhere else? I do not think so. It looks pretty standard stuff. You prepare the list of Artificer spells that are available for you to cast, choosing from the Artificer spell list, which is all the spells. When you do so, choose a number of Artificer spells equal to your intelligence modifier plus half your Artificer level, which I think is also pretty standard for other spellcaster class. Let me just take an example like the Ranger. I believe the Ranger also prepares spells. Oh no, the Ranger also has spells known. The Paladin maybe? Yeah. So Paladin is equal to Charisma modifier plus half your Paladin level. Yeah, so it's the same with the Paladin. And yeah. So I guess in terms of spell design, the Artificer is actually closer to the Paladin more than the Ranger. Although the spell progression level seems to be exactly the same, except for the two spell slots at first level. I don't know. I'm starting to having some thoughts that maybe they should only allow Artificers to have spellcasting at level 2, but you give them magical tinkering and maybe magic item analysis at level 1. So they won't be entirely worthless at level 1. But and they start to get their swing together. They start to act more like class at level 2. Yeah, I think I'm fine with that trade, but let's just see where the designers want to go with this. All right. You can change your list of prepared spells when you finish a long rest. Preparing a new list of Artificer spells requires time spent in tinkering your spellcasting focus, at least 1 minute per spell for each spell in your spell list. Yeah, standard stuff. Alright, spellcasting ability. Spellcasting ability, intelligence. Intelligence is your spellcasting ability for Artificer spells. Your understanding of theory behind the magic allows you to wield these spells with superior skill. You use your intelligence whenever an Artificer spell refers to your spellcasting ability. In addition, you use your intelligence modifier. So yeah, standard stuff. Using intelligence, 8 plus proficiency mod plus intelligence modifier for spells DCs, and the same proficiency mod plus intelligence modifier for spell effects. Ritual casting. So I think this is strangely not available to the Artificer in the previous version. They can't cast spells as rituals, but in the new version, they are allowing the Artificer to cast spells as rituals. So I guess that sort of supersedes like the use of magic item analysis, because that class feature allowed them to cast detect magic and identify as rituals, but they sort of just put it into the spellcasting ability of spellcasting feature of the new Artificer, which can cast not just detect magic and identify but all ritual spells. they didn't know in the Artificer spell list. I'll compare the spell list later on. At the probably at the end. So we'll skip the new Artificer spell list for now. I just want to get through the rest of the class features first. But in the meantime, there seems to be a sidebar here that says the magic of Artifice. As an Artificer, you use tools when you cast your spells. When describing your spell casting, think about how you're using the tool to perform the spell effect. If you cast Cure Wounds using Alchemist supplies, you could be quickly producing a salve. If you cast it using Tinker's tools, you might have a miniature mechanical spider that binds wounds. When you cast Poison Spray, you could fling foul chemicals or use a wand that spits venom. The effect of the spell is the same as for spellcaster of any class, but your method of spellcasting is special. So that's the keyword, your method of spellcasting is special. The same principle applies when you prepare your spells. As an Artificer, you don't study a spell book or pray to prepare your spells. Instead, you work with your tools and create a specialized item you use to produce your effect. If you replace Cure Wounds with Shocking Grasp, you might be breaking down the device you use to heal and create offensive item in its place. Perhaps a gauntlet that lets you channel a surge of energy. So this is just basically role-playing ideas for players of how to explain or describe their spellcasting. Which is probably going to get ignored by a lot of people, but I'm just glad that they just mentioned it here. Such details don't limit you in any way or provide you with any benefit. You don't have to justify how you're using tools to cast a spell, but describing your spellcasting creatively is a fun way to distinguish yourself from other spellcasters. Yeah, that pretty much just says what it does. Distinguish yourself from other spellcasters. Alright, let's move on to the next spellcasting ability, class feature, which is infuse items. So this is where they explain the entirety about infusions. Alright, so at second level, you gain the ability to imbue mundane items with certain magical infusions. The magic items you create with this feature are effectively prototypes of permanent items. So yeah, that's one way to look at it. They are just prototypes of magical items. So infusions node. When you gain this feature, you pick 3 artificial infusions to learn, choosing from the artificial infusion section at the end of the class feat description. You learn additional infusion of your choice when you reach certain levels in this class, as shown in the infusion node column of the artificial table. When you gain a level in the class, you can replace one the artificial infusion you learn with a new one. I guess that sounds pretty standard stuff. Like you would for the warlock invocations, like you can replace your invocations as you level up. Yeah, additionally when you gain, yeah, so the warlock allows you to replace invocations, so pretty much the same as the warlock's invocations. So there's additional rules called infusing an item. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can touch an non-magical object and imbue it with one of your artificer infusion, turning it into a magic item. So because it's a terminology thing, it's a mechanic. It becomes a magic item. Infusion works only on certain kinds of objects as specified in the infusion description. If the item requires attunement, you can attune yourself to it the instant you infuse the item, or you can forego attunement so that someone else can attune to them. Alright, so the rules of attunement applies. If you decide to attune to the item later, you must do so using the normal process of attunement. See attunement in the Dungeon Master's Guide, page 136. Yeah. So because they become magical items, and therefore the rules of attunement applies if they apply. Your infusion remains an item indefinitely, but when you die, the infusion vanishes after a number of days have passed equal to your intelligence modifier minimum of 1. The infusion also vanishes if you give up your knowledge of the infusion for another one. Alright, that's an interesting distinction, but good, important to note. So yeah, I guess that's to prevent abuse. Like at this level, I learn this infusion and infuse as many items as I can. And next level I change the infusion, but because the ops were infused with the previous infusion, I get to still use the effectiveness of those items with the new infusions. So yeah, I think that's a very important clause to include in so that it will not get abused. You can infuse more than one non-magical item at the end of a long rest. The maximum number of objects you can appears in the infused item column of the Artificer table. You must touch each of the objects, and each of your infusion can be in only one object at a time. So same limitations with the magical tinkering, only one infusion per object, same with one property per object. If you try to exceed your number of infusion, the oldest infusion immediately ends and then the new infusion applies. and also the same loophole that the magical tinkering allows for. Basically, if I will just infuse something, uh, and then just leave it behind, and then I know that I won't be not using my I won't run out of infusions because I get to do it on the next one. So let me see, now that this is mentioned, and now that the idea of now that we know how infusion works, and there is the number of the limits of infusion items. The thing is, let me see. You can infuse more than one magical non-magical object at the end of a long rest. So you can infuse. You can just spend all your infusions on the infused items from one long rest. So the infused item caps at 5 objects. It starts with 2. So the idea is basically you can infuse like 2 objects at level 2 after a long rest. And I guess the idea is to encourage you to do it very, very frequently at the end of a long rest. Change your infusions, change what infusions that you have, and I'm guessing that you always know more infusions than the number of infusions that you can infuse, which is, yeah, you know, when you look at just looking at the table, you by the maximum level by level 16, 17, 16, yeah, 16, is that you will know 5 infusions. You will know 7 infusions, but you can infuse up to 5 objects. So there's the whole idea of switching infusions around. That you want to know which infusion that you want to use for the rest of the day, and you can change all that with just one long rest. So I was mentioning this because I was worried that they were putting this limitation that you can only infuse 1 object after one long rest. So like, because you can infuse 2 objects at level 1, at level 2, sorry, you need to take 2 long rests, and therefore you can only, like, you have to plan very specifically which particular infusion and which particular object that you want to infuse ahead of time. So I guess it makes it more flexible than it is. That's good. All right, Artificer Specialist. At 3rd level, you choose the type of specialist you are, Alchemist or Artillerist, each of which is detailed at the end of the class description. Your choice grants you features at 3rd level, 6 and 14. So this is probably the first similarity, well, other than spellcasting, which is the main heart, which is the subclass idea of the Artificer. So one major difference you're going to notice is that the Artificer Specialist feature only comes in the new one at 3rd, 6 and 14, whereas in the previous version they get it 3rd, 9, 14 and 7. So that's basically one less level where you get the Artificer Specialist feature compared to the previous version. There's a variant here. An Artificer subclass makes you more efficient at crafting certain items. The feature you get from your subclass works whether you are using the crafting rules in the player's handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, or Zenata's Guide to everything. I'm not sure why they had to mention. I guess they had to mention this because like they're different books now compared to in the previous version. But you know, I don't know the crafting rules by heart so much to know the difference between the player's handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and the player's Zenata's Guide. But I guess there are actually quite a bit of differences between the 3 books in terms of how crafting is handled. So we'll get into the subclass later on in the document because like I say, they'll talk about it later on in the document itself. So we'll talk about that later on. And it's not a lot to go by. There's only like 3 class features for each subclass. All right, 2 expertise. 2 expertise, I think, is also similar to the same. Both in the previous version you get it at 3rd level, in 2nd level, and in the new version you get it at 3rd level. Your proficiency bonus is double for any ability check you make that uses your proficiency with a tool. Yeah, it's not exactly word for word with the previous version, but it's pretty much the same. You just double proficiency bonus when you're using the tool to make ability checks. Alright, ability score improvement, right, that's there. So Arcane Armament. So Arcane Armament, like I said, starting at 5th level, you can attack twice rather than once whenever you take the attack action on your turn, but one of the attacks must be made with a magic weapon, the magic of which you use to propel the attack. So it's extra attack with some additional conditions, basically. Uh, Although I'm not exactly sure what it means by one of the attack must be made with a magic weapon, the magic of which you use to propel the attack, because there is no class feature prior to up to this point that lets you have a magic weapon. So I'm guessing this is more of a limitation of the condition for extra attack rather than a complement to any of the class features that the Artificer has. So by 5th level, you should give, if you don't give an Artificer a magic item, they will not be able to use Arcane Armament. Some, it's a very odd restriction, I would say, but definitely DMs can work around with it, and unless like the DM is running a very low magic setting, I would think it's uh, pretty fair for a 5th level character to have a magic item by then. Although it does say that the magic of which you use to propel the attack might be one of those very vague lines that you're not exactly sure what it means mechanically. It can mean many different things mechanically. So unless you're saying that it has to be a ranged magic weapon, which I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm like, if I give an Artificer a melee magic weapon at 5th level, can they use Arcane Attunement? By my reading of it right now, as worded right now, I would say yes. By my ruling, I would say yes. Although that line about using the magic of which you use to propel the attack makes it sound like it's supposed to be a ranged weapon. So I might be more inclined to give the Artificer a ranged magical weapon, just because. All right. So moving on. So that's 5th level, and the Artificer does not get a class feature as an Artificer class, not the subclass, class feature until 10th level, which is the right cantrip for the job. This is the one I'm talking about that I personally feel is one of the most broken, one of the most OP class features in any spellcasting class, not just the Artificer, in any spellcasting class. That if any spellcasting class gets something like similar to this, they would be a lot more they would be a lot more flexible and versatile than they are. And I'm not sure why the designers went with this. Uh, it makes sense for the class's lore in a way, but it seems like it's um, eating up, or it's making the Artificer look very good compared to other spellcasting classes. So let's just get to it. At 10th level, you gain the ability to make sure you have the right magical tool for a job. Whenever you finish a short or long rest, you can replace one of the Artificer cantrips you know with another cantrip from the Artificer spell list. That's just insane. You, basically, it's sort of it's the cantrips known of an Artificer just ends at 10th level. They can always just switch their cantrips around with a short rest, remind you. With a short rest, they can change their cantrips. I might not have minded so much if it was a long rest, in the sense that the players has to plan a little bit ahead. But even the ability of switching cantrips from a rest, I mean, some spellcasting classes will probably kill for that. Uh, Maybe this is balanced by the Artificer spell list that the cantrips that they know in the spell list is not that great. But if just imagine if this was given to any other of the classes, or any other spellcasting classes like wizards or sorcerers, like, I mean, that's just mad. That's just crazy. And this is probably like, it's like, as a player, this is my favorite class feature, but as a DM, like, wow, I mean, it's good in a way that the DM doesn't have to plan the cantrips, the challenges around, the encounters around the Artificer's cantrips known. But it makes it also very hard to plan, because the Artificer may just come up with the exact perfect cantrip to just like mitigate the entire encounter all entirely. Or alright, I mean, like, they're just cantrips, but man, that's so many classes would love to have this class feature. So that's the one that, so it's more about it's more about what the number of cantrips know. the number, not the exact cantrip that is known. And for the new version, they can know up to 4, and they can switch it around between rests. So, or my gut instinct is definitely balance this out by saying, make it a long resting. Don't make it a short rest. Don't allow this in a short rest. Make the artificer player still have to know how to plan, and also bear in mind he can only change one. He cannot change he knows 4 cantrips and he wants to change all 4 in the next long rest. That'll be just insane. All right, spell storing item. When you reach 18th level, you learn how to store a spell in object for repeated use. Whenever you finish a long rest, you can touch one simple or martial weapon or an item that you use as spellcasting focus, which also means one of your infused items and also your tools, and store a spell in it, choosing one first or second level spell from the Artificer spell list that requires one action to cast. You don't need to have the spell prepared. That's quite a loophole. But anyways, with the object in hand, a creature can take an action to produce a spell effect from it using your spellcasting ability modifier. The spell stays in the object until it has been used a number of times equal to twice your intelligence modifier, minimum of twice, or until you use this feature again. So it only affects one object. Yeah, one object. You can only do this to one object to cast a first or the second level spell up to how many times? Up to twice your intelligence modifier. That could potentially be between 8 to 10. 8 to 10? Yeah, 8 to 10 if your intelligence modifier is 4 to 5. That's quite a big number actually. Although it's a level 18 feature, so I guess level 1 and 2 spells wouldn't be that big of a deal. I guess it really highly depends on what spells are available to a Artificer at level 1 and 2. I imagine if they allow things like like charm spells, damage spells will probably be the go-to. But if they imagine something a bit more utility spells in the list that they can use up to 4 to 8 times, 8 to 10 times, that can be pretty powerful. Alright, Soul of the Artifice. At 20th level, your understanding of magic items is unmatched, allowing you to mingle your soul with items linked to you. You can attune to up to 6 magic items at once. In addition, you gain a +1 bonus to all saving throw per magic item you are currently attuned to. So this is one that is that's repeated from the previous rendition, so the Artifice, which is is an exact copy and paste from the previous version. So what else is there that's different? So looking at the previous version, they had a class feature called Infused Magic at 4th level. Starting at 4th level, you gain the ability to channel your Artificer spells into objects for later use. When you cast an Artificer spell with a casting time of 1 action, you can increase its casting time to 1 minute. If you do so and hold a non-magical item throughout the casting, you expand the spell slot, but none of the spell effects occur. Instead, the spell transfers into that item for later use, an item that doesn't already contain a spell from this feature. Okay, any creature holding an item thereafter can use an object to activate a spell. If the creature has an intelligence score of 6 at least 6, the spell is cast using a spellcasting modifier. Targeting creature activates it. If the spell targets more than one creature, the creature that activates the spell selects not additional target. If the spell has an area effect, it centers on the item it targets. When you infuse the spell, it must be used within 8 hours. After that time, its magic is fades and wasted. You can have a limited infusion at the same time, not equal to intelligence modifier. So I guess this is like the compact version of all the new class features of the Artificer. It is sort of like the infused item mixed with the spell storing, mixed with magical tinkering to some extent. But in the new version, they decided to split it all up into different features and then tier it into different levels, rather than allowing the Artificer to do it all by 4th level. Okay, so now I think we can start going into the subclass features of the new Artificer. So as already mentioned, you have the Alchemist and you have the Artillerist. Artillerist is a very strange name, but I'll take it for what it means. Alright, so the Alchemist starts with an alchemist is an expert of combining exotic reagents to produce mystical effects. Among artificers, members of this club class are the greatest healers, as well as the most adept at wielding dangerous chemicals. Tools of the trade. By the time you adopt this specialty at 3rd level, you are deeply familiar with employing its tools. Tools of the proficiencies. You gain proficiency with alchemist class and the herbalism kit. Assuming you don't already have them. You also gain alchemy supplies and a herbalism kit for free, the result of tinkering you've done as you prepared for this specialization. If you craft a magic item in the potion category, it takes you a quarter of the normal time and it costs you half as much as the usual goal. Alright, so this is going to be the standard for every subclass of the Artificer. They're gonna get new 2 proficiencies, and they're gonna get that tool that they're newly proficient in. And I guess there will be the additional variant rule of what, and they're also gonna get the crafting bonuses. Quarter of the time, half the price. In which category, I guess it will depend on which subclass they take. Which is, that's fair, that's interesting. Alchemy spells. Starting at 3rd level, you always have certain spells prepared after you reach particular levels in this class, as shown in the alchemy spells table. These spells count as artificer spells for you, but they don't count against the number of artificer spells you prepare. So basically, each artificer subclass gives them what you can call like domain spells, like clerics. The spells that they're always prepared with, that does not count to their numbers. Yeah. So that's interesting, because now you're looking at the Artificer as some sort of hybrid between the cleric, the warlock, and the paladin. A very interesting approach to spell casting design for a class, which was something that what the 3.5 version was going at. That they were a spellcasting class of their own, and I'm kind of glad they are going for this direction as well in 5e, and they managed to find a way with it. Although whether that's a good idea or that's a balanced idea, it's it has to be seen. It has to be played to be seen. So I can't really comment on that right now at this stage. So what spells do they get? What? So they get their alchemy spells, and also I will assume the artillery spells at 3, 5th, 9th, 13, and 17. Which is not exactly the same with the cleric domain spells. The domain spells happen at 1st, 2nd, 6th, 8th, and 17. So the only similarity is at 17, but they definitely get theirs at different levels. And I believe they actually get more. No, they get the same amount. They get the same amount in terms of like 5 levels. They get their own alchemist skills. So the alchemist spells are at 3rd level. Purify food and water, ray of sickness. 5th level, melt acid arrow, web. 9th level, create food and water, stinking cloud. 13th level, blight, death ward. 17th level, cloud cure, raise dead. Or raise dead. I wasn't expecting them to get raise dead. Some of these spells seem to be getting it at a very later rate. Than the levels indicate. Let me just have a look. Melf's Acid Arrow. Melf's Acid Arrow is a level 2 spell which they get at level 5, which they would normally get by level 3. Level 3? Do they get it at level 3? I believe they should. Level 5. Oh no, they don't. They get level 5. So okay, all's fair. They get that probably means they get spells, their subclass spells at the level they can cast them at. All right, fine. That's pretty slow. But they're not exactly a full-on spellcaster class. So Blight's at level 4, and the Artificer gets his levels. Blight's at level 4, which he gets at level 13, which he can cast level 4 spells At level 13, yeah. So the spells they can get, they get from their subclasses is equal to the the level which they can cast that particular spell, and they're prepared for free. All right. Okay. Okay. Uh, is the spell choice weird for the alchemist? Given that spell they, I mean, their spell casting is assumed it's more of a it's more like they're fiddling with something and then causing that same effect rather than reading it from a spell, casting it from memory or from a spell book. I guess the choices do make a lot of sense. Purify food and water, ray of sickness, malvaceous arrow, malvaceous arrow as in being a damage type, web, blight, death ward. I guess raise dead is the only one that will raise some questions for me. Like why is the artificer allowed to cast raise dead? Although I actually have reasons to believe that the 3.5 version of Artificer actually had access to resurrection spells like raise dead. Maybe not resurrection, but at least raise dead. Or uh, what level is raise dead? Is because between raise dead and animate dead, I might have preferred that it was animate dead, but maybe they were different levels. So raise dead level 5. Animate dead is at level 3. Yeah. And because it gives the alchemist a strange role as a healer slash cleric resurrector type role. And I have reason to believe that the spell list later on as we go through it, they would have uh, healing spells into the mix. Let's just have a quick look here. Cure wounds, yeah, they have cure wounds. They don't have resurrection, I believe. Revivify, they have Revivify in the spells list. So they don't have Raise Dead in the general spell list, so therefore it's a unique thing to the alchemist, and it's yeah. So they don't so it's only the alchemist will probably have that special role as a Raise Dead cleric. All right. Next class feature, next subclass feature, alchemical homunculus. At third level, you learn ancient methods of magically creating a special homunculus that is formed by alchemical substances. Whenever you finish a long rest and your alchemy supplies are with you, you can form this homunculus in the unoccupied space within 5 feet of you. If you already have a homunculus from this feature, the first one immediately dies. So there's a limitation to that. The homunculus is friendly to you and your companions and it obeys your commands. See this creature's scheme statistics in the alchemical homunculus stat block. You determine the homunculus appearance, which includes wings and bits of alchemical equipment. Some alchemists prefer mechanical-looking birds, whereas others like wing vials or miniature cauldrons. In combat, the homunculus shares your initiative count, but it takes its turn immediately after yours. Your only action it takes on its turn is the dodge action, unless you take a bonus action on your turn to command it to take one of the actions in its stat block or to take the dash, disengage, or help action. If the mending spell is cast in on it, it regains 2d6 hit points. If it has died within the last hour, you can use your alchemist supplies as an action to revive it, provided you are within 5 feet of it and you expand the spell slot of first or higher level. The homunculus returns to life with all hit points restored. So looking at the alchemical homunculus stat block. Armor class 13, hit points equals to 5 times your level in this class plus your intelligence modifier. So at level 3, when you can first create it, it's 3 times 5, 15 plus intelligence modifier, which is a potential of between 19 to 20 hit points. And well, it scales. At least it scales with your level. So at level 20, it will have 100 hit points plus your intelligence modifier. At level say 10, it will have 50 hit points plus intelligence modifier. Alright, strength of 4, dexterity 15, con 11, intelligence 10, intelligence wisdom 10, charisma 7. Skills is perception plus 4, stealth plus 4. Damage immunity is acid poison. Condition immunity is charm, exhaustion, poison. Senses, dark vision 60 feet, perception 10 feet. Understands the languages you speak. Might of the Master. The following numbers increase by 1 when your proficiency bonus increase by 1. The homunculus skill bonuses and the bonuses to hit and damage is acidic spittle. Alright. actions require your bonus action. So it's mentioned in the class feature, you can only do these actions if the Artificer spends a bonus action to command it to do so. Alright, so Acidic Spitter, range weapon attack plus 4 to hit, which increases with the proficiency bonus of the Artificer. So at +1 it's already at +4, so at +6 it's +5 if I'm not mistaken, so the maximum of +9 altogether. Range 30 feet, one target you can see hit +1d6 +2, 1d6 +2 acid damage. Alchemical Salve, 3 times per day. Alright, 3 times per day, 3 times per long rest. Harmonious produces a salve and touches one creature you designate to defeat the target. The target receives one of the following magical effects of your choice. Buoyancy, the target gains a flying speed of 10 feet for 10 minutes. That's great. Inspiration, the target feels giddy and effective, gaining advantage on certain ability checks in the next hour. The target chooses the checks before or after rolling. The magic runs out after the target has used it on a number of checks equal to an intelligence modifier minimum 1. That's pretty good. Resilience, the target gains a number of temporary hit points equal to 2d6 plus intelligence modifier. 3 times per day. So you can effectively affect 3 characters until a long rest. You can make them fly for 10 feet for 10 minutes. That's really long. I will expect it to be like 1 minute for flying speed of 10 minutes, but 10 minutes is really long. Inspiration is advantage for the next hour. And it says certain ability checks, but it doesn't really specifically mention which ability checks. Like, it sounds to like without mentioning which ability check, it sounds to me like it can be any ability check. And the target chooses the checks before or after rolling. Before or after rolling? But you're supposed to gain advantage. You're supposed to roll before you decide to reroll. Although most people practice the fact that they would roll a second dice after they decided to get that they have to gain it. After they have advantage, they decide to roll a second dice after the first roll. So I'm not sure. This one is quite badly worded. It doesn't seem to follow the same conventions or understanding of what advantages mean in the raw text. But as it stands right now, it's fine because it only lasts for an hour, and you can only do it a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier. And it's kind of weird to put it on the hand of the player to decide which check before or after rolling. Because it can for next hour equal to intelligence modifier, which is 4 to 5. For next hour, the next 4 to 5 checks is an automatic advantage by just using this alchemical salve. It's mechanically I would say it needs to be worded much more properly, to be more to make it more mechanical sounding rather than relying on very weird adjudication. But as it is right now, it sounds a little bit overpowered for an hour. But yeah, let's just hope that the design. I mean, if the designers are watching this, I hope they really read it up. Find a better way to word this. And resilience is adding 2d6 temporary hit points plus intelligence modifier. I mean, you can only do this 3 times a day, and I would personally say this is like the weakest among all 3 alchemical salve abilities. But 2d6 temporary hit points is still 2d6 temporary hit points for what it's worth. Alright, so we're going into the next subclass feature, Alchemical Mastery. At 6th level, your command of magical chemicals has become masterful, enhancing the healing and damage you create through them. When you cast a spell using your Artificer, using your alchemist supplies as the spellcasting focus, you gain a bonus to 1 roll of the spell. That roll must restore hit points or be a damage roll that deals acid or poison damage, and the bonus equals your intelligence modifier, minimum +1. In addition, you can cast Lesser Restoration without expending a spell slot, provided you use alchemist supplies as the spellcasting focus. You can do so a number of times per day, equal to your intelligence modifier minimum of once. So you get to add bonus to 1 roll to the spell. So using alchemical supplies, and let's just pick a spell that does acid damage. Spell acid damage. Can I find a good example? Acid Splash, Chaos Bolt. Good spells. Melt Acid. Alright, let's just take Melt Acid Arrow as an example. So Melt Acid Arrows does 4d4 acid damage. If I have Alchemical Mastery, I can add my Intelligence modifier. Yeah, I can add my Intelligence modifier to it, which is 4 to 5. It's not that big of a deal, to be honest. Yeah, it's not that great of a deal. I mean, 5e spells are generally designed without modifiers being applied to the damage or even to cure. I think cure wounds allows you to apply your spellcasting mod. Yeah, cure wounds allows you to apply your spellcasting mod. So in this case, it would be Alchemical Mastery will allow them to have 1d8 plus spellcasting mod, which is intelligence, plus again Alchemical Mastery plus, so it effectively doubles the spellcasting mod to cure wounds. I guess that's, yeah, that makes it a different powered healer, and because cure wounds is a tiered spell and it is in the Artificer spell list, they actually do become a bit better than most clerics. Let me just see how does that compare with the life cleric though, because you'll be really awkward if it's better than the life cleric. So 2 plus spell level. So the life cleric's disciple of life allows them to restore additional 2 plus spell level. Is that necessary? That might be lower. That might be lower than the Artificer's Alchemical Mastery. For example, if I cast Cure Wounds at first level, as a disciple of life, as a life cleric, I get to have 1d8 plus spellcasting mod, plus 1 for first level, plus 2. So it's effectively plus 1d8 plus 3 plus spellcasting mod. And let's use an example of 18. So that's 4. So that's 1d8 plus 7 altogether. Whereas compared to the Artificer, it'll be 1d8 plus 4 plus 4, which is plus 8. So that's higher. That's actually higher than the Disciple of Life. That's pretty awkward. That's pretty awkward. And not to mention that they can cast Lesser Restoration number of times equal to Intelligence mod. So that's 4 to 5. They can cast Restoration 4 to 5 times a day with using the Alchemical Supply Focus without expending a spell slot at level 6. So what can this Artificer cast at level 6? The Artificer can cast 2 level 2 spells at level 6, which is what Lesser Restoration is, but they not only not have to prepare Lesser Restoration spell anymore, they can cast it up to 4 to 5 times. That's pretty powerful, I think. That's pretty powerful for, I mean, compared to the cleric. Let's look at the cleric's spellcasting. At level 6, what can they cast? They can cast 3 level 2 spells. Okay. Yeah, that actually turns the alchemist into a pretty solid healer compared to the cleric, because they have the focus. So I guess the real drawback to this whole class feature is the tools thing. And if you're the kind of DM who just want to control that, yeah, you probably want to destroy a lot of their tools and pay a bit more attention to making sure the player doesn't have access to tools than you want them to. But it's really odd. It's really odd to see that the Artificer is a better healer than the cleric. But I don't think, but it definitely still doesn't beat Healing Spirit. Doesn't beat the Druid's Healing Spirit, which is also at level 2. Alright. Really awkward, but okay, let's move on. I think we are coming to the end of the Alchemist subclass. Alright. So by 14th level, Chemical 7th, by 14th level you've been exposed to so many chemicals and unlock the secrets that they pose little risk to you, and you can use them to quickly end certain ailments. You gain resistance to acid and poison damage, and you are now immune to the poison condition. In addition, you can cast Greater Restoration without expending a spell slot, and without providing the material components provided you use Alchemist to a spellcasting focus. You regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. So Greater Restoration, I believe, is not in. Oh, it is. It is in the. It is in the spellcasters, artificer spell list, at 5th level. You get this ability when you are at 14, I believe. 14 level. 14 level. At which level you can already cast. You still cannot cast Greater Restoration. So. And you can only do this once per long rest, compared to the Lesser Restoration, which is equal to your Intelligence mod. Alright. So. Okay. 14th level, Greater Restoration. And the Artificer doesn't get to cast Greater Restoration normally until he is 17th level. So he gets it about three levels ahead, once per long rest. I guess this limitation makes more sense because it's Greater Restoration, and I personally would have liked to see it done the same for Lesser Restoration. Because let's see when does a cleric cast Greater Restoration. Should be a 5th level spell. I haven't paid attention to the spell level. So as far as I can see, the spell level in the Artificer spell list is the same with every other spell list. Like, if they don't get spells later, they don't get certain spells later than the spell level indicates. So that shouldn't be a problem. So Greater Restoration is a 5th level spell, and the cleric gets to cast that. He gains access to 5th level spells at 9th level. So the cleric is still way ahead in being able to cast Greater Restoration spell, and by the time the Artificer gets it level 14, the cleric can cast it twice. At it has 2 5th level slots. It already has a 6 and 7 level slot by then, so you can cast it up to 4 times, compared to the Artificer, who can cast it once for free and 1 spell slot at 5th level, at level 14. So yeah, so definitely Chemical 7 is the much it's more in line and much weaker than the Life Cleric, or Cleric in general. But the alchemical mastery of it, being able to cast Lesser Restoration more times in theory at least, than a Cleric, and even healing more than a Life Cleric. That one I think would probably need to be a bit managed by the designers. Alright, so we are done. We're done with the alchemist subclass. Let's go into the artillerist subclass. Hopefully it's not that long. We still have quite a bit to go through in terms of the infusions and the spell list. Alright, so let's just get it out of the way. This is probably going to run more than 2 hours, and it's a new class. What do you expect? There's a lot to sift through. It's not just a subclass, it's a new class altogether. Alright. An artillerist specializes in using magic to create explosions in defensive positions, as well as magic-infused sidearms, especially wands, that can be used on the battlefield. Artillerists were valued by all armies of the last war. So tools of the trade, what do they get? They get proficiency in smith's tools and woodcarver tools, and they get uh, those tools for free when they get this subclass. In addition, you gain the ability to use rods, staffs, and wands as spellcasting focuses for your Artificer spells. You also gain a non-magical wooden wand for free, which you've carved in your spare time. Okay, I'm guessing this non-magical wand would have users in with the later artillerist class features. I'm kind of glad that they took out that gun version of the artificer subclass, which I used, and it was just producing some ridiculous amounts of damage, and it was, so it was very simple but at the same time very effective. So I'm glad that yeah, this artillerist, which is probably the switch around version of the, what's it? I need to find out what it's called. Gunsmith, if I'm mistaken. It's the alchemist. Yeah, the gunsmith. I would take the artillerist over the gunsmith in terms of flavor for Aberon Artificer any day. I was actually kind of disappointed when they actually introduced the gunsmith, even though as a player it was really really effective to use, really fun to use. But it was not the artificer that I knew. So yeah, I'm definitely much more inclined towards the artillerists and their predisposition towards wands, because that was kind of the flavor that you wanted with the artificer in Eberron, that they were basically hauling different kind of wands at all times, and they were just like pulling out wands at different moments. And like, why do you need a gun if you have wands, right? Yeah, and wands are way cooler than guns if you ask me. All right, artillery spells. All right, same. They get like domain spells for as an alchemist, and we are looking at spells like third level they get Shield Thunderwave, fifth level they get Scorching Ray Shatter, ninth level they get Fireball Wind Wall, which is pretty late. Fireball. 13th level they get Ice Storm Wall of Fire, 17th level they get Cone of Cold Wall of Force. So I'm guessing it's probably going to be the same. Like Fireball is at ninth level, is probably the level where they can cast third level spells. So let's just double check that. I think I shouldn't make a mistake about that. Ninth level is, yeah, is the level where they can start casting third level spells. So no problem there. Artillerist is definitely supposed to be the more damage dealing subclass pick. Like if you want to be the damage dealer of Artificer type, then yeah, definitely be the Artillerist. Shield, Thunderwave, Scorching Ray, Shatter, Fireball. These are all offensive spells, true and true. Except for the wall spells, but even then you get like Wind Wall, Wall of Force, Wall of Fire, Ice Storm, Cone of Cold. Yeah, these all just make a lot of perfect sense to me. Alright. Arcane Turret. At third level, you learn how to create a magical turret. With your Spiff's tools in hand, you can take an action to magically summon a medium turret in an unoccupied space on a horizontal surface within 5 feet of you. I'm guessing this is supposed to be the alchemical homunculi version. Yeah, alchemical homunculi. Yeah, it's supposed to be the alchemical homunculus version of the artillerist, rather than a homunculus. You get a turret. And what can you do with the turret? The turret is a magical object that occupies its space, and it has crab-like eggs. It has an AC of 18, number of hit points equal to 5 times your artificer level, same, except that he doesn't get to apply the intelligence mod. Yeah, doesn't get to apply the intelligence mod compared to the homunculus. It is immune to poison damage, psychic damage, and all conditions. Way better than the homunculus. If it's forced to make an ability check or a saving throw, treat all its ability scores as 10. So ability score, the homunculus has a different variant. Like it has an actual stat block, but the turret doesn't. If the mending spell is cast on it, it gains 2d6. It disappears if it's reduced to 0 hit points or after 10 minutes. So there's a time limit to how long these turrets last. You can dismiss it early as an action. Let me see how many times can you do this. You take an action to magically summon a medium turret in the occupied space. So rather than the homunculus which lives until it dies, and you can revive it with just an action and within an hour. Basically you can cast like it's basically a free revivify, I guess, for homunculus, but for the artillerist it's kind of like conjure in this case conjure turret, if you want to call it that way. Alright. When you summon the turret, you decide which type it is, choosing from the options on the Arcane Turret table. On each of your turns, you can take a bonus action to cause the turret to activate if you're within 6 feet of it, 60 feet of it. As part of the same action, you can direct the turret to walk or climb up to 15 feet to an unoccupied space. You can summon the turret once for free, then must finish a long rest before doing so again. You can also summon the turret by expending a spell slot of first or higher. If you summon a second turret, the first turret disappears. Okay, as an action, you can command your turret to detonate if you are within 60 feet of it. Doing so destroys the turret and forces each creature within 10 feet of it to make a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC, taking 3d6 damage on a failed save or half as much on a damage of a successful one. Okay, this is a bit complicated for what it's worth. I would just rather you just give me a stat block and just write it down as a stat block. Like, why do you have to write this down as a different thing on its own? All right. So I'm not sure what he means by the activation part. Like, does it mean that when you summon an arcane turret, it's not activated? You have to spend a bonus action. You have to spend a bonus action to cause the turret to activate if you're within 60 feet of it. As part of the same action, you can direct the turret to walk or climb 15 feet of the activation area. Okay, that's fine. It's basically the same as the homunculi, where the artificer has to spend a bonus action to make thing they summon or create do what it wants to do. But it doesn't say anything about this arcane turret having its own initiative run. Doesn't have its own initiative count. Doesn't act autonomously. It means it doesn't do things like take the dodge action by the default. And it can only go up to 15 feet. It only have an effective walking and climb speed of 15 feet, whereas the homunculus has a speed of 20 feet, fly 30 feet. So yeah, that's slower than the homunculus. Alright. So you choose the target. You can only summon one turret per long rest. Is that it? You can summon one turret for free and must finish a long rest before doing so again. Yeah, so it's basically one turret per long rest. For free. The first one is free, and every time you want to summon it again, it causes you a spell slot. First level or higher. It only lasts for 10 minutes? 10 minutes of 0 hit points. So effectively, I guess that means you can only have one turret at a time until it dies or until you dismiss it. And only the first one is free until a long rest is done. Let me see. I guess they probably need to cover that line, like when do you reset the first free spell casting? Yeah, alright. You can summon a turret once for free and must finish a long rest before doing so again. So it's not taking away the possibility that you want to summon a turret multiple times between long rests. But I guess in most cases, players would just say like, okay, I've summoned the turret today, and I need a long rest. I need to recharge this ability. Alright. So what are the types of turrets? Arcane turrets. There are basically three types: the flamethrower, the force ballista, and the defender. Alright. The flamethrower. Activation. The turret exhales fire in an adjacent 15-foot cone that you designate. Each creature in that area must make a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC, taking 1d8 fire damage on a failed save or half as much on the successful one. The fire ignites any flammable objects in the area that aren't being moved on or carried. Spell save DC is equal to your spell save, so it's 8 plus proficiency modifier plus your intelligence modifier, but it only gives like a 1d8 15-foot cone. Another great thing. It doesn't scale. That's the other problem, compared to the homunculus, which scales according to your proficiency level. Bonus, sorry. Alright. Force ballista. Make a ranged spell attack originating from the turret at one creature or object within 120 feet of it. On a hit, target takes 2d8 force damage, and if the target is a creature, it is pushed up to 5 feet away from the turret. So it's 2d8. It's slightly more damaging than the flamethrower, although the flamethrower is an AoE. compared to the Force Ballista, and it pushes the target 5 feet. 120. It has 120 feet range, which is way longer than the 15-foot cone AOE. It's a ranged spell attack though. So it uses that whole 8 plus intelligence modifier plus proficiency bonus. Plus intelligence modifier plus proficiency bonus. Proficiency bonus plus intelligence modifier to the attack 2d8, and it lasts for wow. And again, it has a problem that it doesn't scale. So not the turrets seems quite underwhelming to me, to be honest. I guess. And you're supposed to spend a bonus action to make it walk and do its thing. You activate it. Yeah, you activate it with a bonus action. So I guess it's really more like a support, a minor support, like the Ranger's Animal Companion, the current raw, not the modified one. So it's just there to just poke rather than do its own thing, more or less, which is different from the Alchemical Homunculi, which I believe can even use to. Well, the Alchemical Homunculi can do the salve thing, which is an added bonus, and it only does like 1d6 plus 2 acid damage. And here's the thing, it's 1d6 plus acid damage, plus it's 1d6 plus 2 acid damage, whereas the turrets only do a straight die roll. They're kind of like spells in their own way, 2d8 or 1d8. The last type is the Defender. The turret emits a burst of positive energy that grants itself and each creature of your choice within 10 feet of it a number of temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your intelligence modifier, a minimum of +1. So this is the one that I think I would probably end up using a lot more often with the turret. And as a bonus, it's basically a free temporary hit points. And it's more than what the Alchemical Homunculus can give. The Alchemical Homunculus can give 2d6 plus intelligence modifier, but it's 3 times per day. Whereas the Defender turret, if I just keep it close to 10 feet of everyone, and it can move. Remember that it can move 15 feet, it can climb 15 feet. I can keep it within 10 feet of me, 10 feet of everyone. It doesn't even have to be even near to the Artificer, but it has to be within 60 feet to activate it. And it gives 1d8 plus intelligence modifier of temporary hit points. So every time anyone within 10 feet of the turret runs out temporary hit points, I just mode action and just give them 1d8 plus intelligence modifier. And it's strange that they allow the intelligence modifier to apply to the turret's temporary hit points rather than the damages. I guess it's for more balance reasons, but it's just odd in that way. Alright, wand prototype, level 6. By 6th level, you now regularly experiment with channeling different types of magic through wands. Whenever you finish a long rest and your wood covers tools are with you, you can touch a non-magical wooden wand and turn it into a magic item. When you do so, you invest it with a 1 Artificer cantrip of your choice, even one you don't know, that has a casting time of 1 action. As an action, you can cast a magic wand to produce a cantrip, causing a spellcasting ability modifier, using your spellcasting ability modifier. Other creatures are unable to use the wand's magic. The wand loses this magic when you finish your next long rest. Okay. Any damage roll you make for cantrip in the wand gains a bonus equal to your intelligence modifier. When you reach 14th level in this class, you can invest the wand with 2 cantrips at the end of a long rest. So effectively, this is saying it's giving you 2 additional cantrips to the cantrips that you already know. And remember, at 10th level, happens at 6th level, so you haven't gone to that level where you can just totally mess up. You can totally just switch around your cantrips, and this one does not have the infusion restriction in the sense that you can put cantrips into the wand that you don't know, and if you switch, that's the whole basic idea. You can put cantrips that you don't know into a wand. So that effectively increases your cantrip by 1 or 2 when you're at level 14. That's a pretty sweet ability if you ask me. And by the time he reach level, by the time he gets level 14, when he can put 2 cantrips onto a same wand, he's already switching around his cantrips just to add on to that. So he becomes a super versatile cantrip machine in a way. The artillerist is. What else can you see? And you add damage. You add your damage. You add your modifier to the damage roll, which is extra sweet for cantrips, especially when you scale to level. And the fact that you can't, this wand can't be used by anyone else, even though it's treated as a magical item. That might be a conflict. There might be a conflict between the ruling, uh, especially for rogues, I believe, that has a use magic device or use magic item. So it's gonna be a bit debatable, like which rule is the exception to the other, because it's a magic item. It's a magic item. Therefore, the rogue's use magic device can apply. Uh, or is it that the warm prototype feature specifically mentions that no other creatures are unable to use the wand's magic, and therefore it does not allow use magic device to be the exception. Yeah. How powerful this is going to really depend on the cantrip spell list of the Artificer, which we're going to get into at the end. So I'll just leave my comments for this right now, but I've already stated what is it actually effectively benefiting. All right. Fortified position. Starting at 14th level. This is the last class feature, subclass feature for the artillerist. Starting at 14th level, you are a master at conjuring a well-defended emplacement. You and your allies have half cover, while within 10 feet of a turret you create with Arcane Turret, as a result of shimmering field of magical protection from the turret emits. Okay. So half cover is effectively plus 2 AC if I remember it correctly. Half cover is plus 2 to AC and dexterity saving throws. It's way better than plus 2, which is probably better to word it as half cover rather than just saying plus 2 to AC. Alright. You can also now summon a second turret for free and must use a long rest before doing so again. If you summon the second turret while the first is still present, the first one doesn't disappear, and each turret can be of a different type. If you summon a third turret, the first turret vanishes. Moreover, you can use one bonus action to activate both turrets. Yeah, so this is basically just improvement of the arcane turret feature, plus the whole with a half cover bonus. So there's not a lot of mechanics I see that allows creation of cover. Most spells I think still design, or most features and equipment still designed around saying things like plus 2 to AC. I think this is one instances where you see a feature that creates cover. Maybe there are other spells like rangers. They probably have some spells that create either obscurement or cover, but this is something that can be used repeatedly uh, for a class feature. And remember that he can have two at this point. At level 14, he can have two turrets. They'll lead to questions like, does half cover stack half cover equals to 3/4 cover, or does that become full cover? That will probably be one of the main questions being asked. And I think the designers will have to preempt and find an answer to that. I believe in by raw in the rules for cover, there is no sentence or clause that stipulates that combination of cover gives additional levels of cover. But a lot of players are probably going to dispute that, and it's really up to until there's an official answer from Wizards or Jeremy Crawford on this. It's something the DMs are going to have to figure it out for themselves, or which ruling they're going to go for. And the fact that you can have two at 14th level, having a force ballista that deals 2d8, and now that can have two, you effectively can have 2d8 plus 2d8, 4d8 attacking at the same time. At 14th level, I don't think that makes a huge difference, but it definitely increases the potential and the efficiency of the arcane turrets. Whether at the right level is a different question. Alright, so now that we are done with the subclasses, we are now going into the infusion, and they don't seem to be a lot of infusions because we are reaching almost the end of the document. Let me just stat down the number of infusions they have. So this video has already hit past the 2 hour mark, and probably the longest video for definitely doing uh, unearthing the Arcana, and I don't know if that's a good thing. I hope by doing these videos that you guys would definitely be able to share your opinions, make your comments, and maybe hopefully learn and see something from a different perspective. And I'm definitely open to people who can point things out that I missed while making this video and looking at the items this way. Looking at the Anuvakana document this way. Okay, so based on my listings, there's altogether 8 infusions right now in this playtest document, which is far and beyond less than what the warlocks have. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers of how many they had when it was just the player's handbook. But altogether now, including the ones from Zenata Guide, I believe it's Zenata's Guide, there's altogether 46 invocations that the Warlock has. So, I mean, I'm not sure if the designers are like future proofing, like are leaving a lot of space for future potential invocations. They may add a bunch more invocations later in the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron, or in different source books. But until the Artificer becomes published or like official published class, and even that's questionable. Like I don't know, like are they going to add this into the Wayfinder's Guide, and it will be the current iteration of the Artificer until I don't know until the Wayfinder's Guide becomes official. But I mean I don't really have any complaints about choice about options right now. I mean it's really too early to for that to be a problem, and there's already 8 at the moment. So let's just see what we have right now, and I think it's probably more than enough at this point. Artificers have invented numerous magical infusions that rapidly create magic items. To the untrained, artificers seem like wonder workers, accomplishing in hours what others need weeks to complete. The description of each infusion tells you the type of item that can receive it. The description also tells you if the resulting magic item requires attunement. Some infusions specify a minimum artificer level. You can't learn such an infusion until you are at least that level. Unless an infusion description says otherwise, you can't learn the infusion more than once. Okay. Yeah, sounds like how the warlock invocations were designed. Some allows you to be taken multiple times. Some have level prerequisites, and you have to really read into the text of the infusion itself to know what kind of items it can affect, and does it require attunement. So okay, let's just get into it. So the first one is called Boots of the Winding Path. Prerequisite 4th level artificer item, a pair of boots requires attunement. I think I think the whole attunement thing, if I remember correctly when I read it, when we were reading it just now, is that you can attune to it automatically as you infuse it. So I don't think this whole attunement thing really is a big problem in terms of managing time, but it's a big problem in terms of the number of attunement that the artificer can have. And given that they can create magical items almost on the fly, I think attunement management is going to be a bit more crucial to the artificer than your regular other classes, and that's going to be quite a problem because they don't get to increase the number of attunement they have until they get the sword of the artificer, which is like level 17, I believe. Yeah, so they're gonna have to be very very picky about what items they infuse with, and at least I think the real ability of the infusion is that he can create magical items for party members rather than for himself, like +1 magic armor, +1 weapons on the fly without having to find those things as a treasure and just pass it to someone. uh, and that's probably why there's that number of infused items they allow with, and for it to be higher than the infusions that they know. And I have a feeling that there's going to be a few go-tos that every artificer is going to go for, and they're just going to stick with it, and everything else is just basic. So right. Just coming back to Boots of the Winding Path. Prerequisite level 4th level item is a pair of boots. While wearing these boots, a creature can teleport up to 15 feet as a bonus action to an unoccupied space that the creature can see. The creature must have occupied that space at some point during the current turn. During the current turn, mind you, it has to be the same turn. It doesn't have to be the same round. So this is more like this is more useful as a retreating item. They move across somewhere, they attack, and they want to disengage, and therefore they just teleport 15 feet back. Okay. Uh, that's pretty useful in a technical sense because the teleportation therefore doesn't provoke OA. And yeah, I think that's a pretty useful magic item. Now that we have come up to this, I need to check how long do these infusions last. I don't remember. These infusions should last indefinitely until you die, and they vanish 1d equal to your days equal to your intelligence modifier. And if you give up your infusion, and alright, so they last indefinitely. So that means the number of items that you can infuse really plays a strong factor. But you can still play around with it by just infusing something beyond your limits, and therefore the previous one would die. The oldest one would die. Okay, but alright. So these infusions are actually meant to be a more long-term thing. Like you infuse it, and you don't want to, and you kind of like just infuse it and just pass it to a party member and let them keep it until there's a limit to it. So the number of infusions start with 2, I believe. Yeah, 2 items becomes 3, becomes 5. So 5 items. A party of 5 is basically like 1 item per person, and 2 is not a lot. And depends how you want to like pile up the number of infused items to certain party members or to yourself. Alright, so enhanced defense item, a suit of armor or a shield. So I'm guessing almost all of these infusions are tied to a specific item. There's nothing generic about it. Alright, so coming back, enhanced defense. The creature gains +1 bonus to armor class while wearing armor or wielding shield or wielding the infused item. The bonus increase to +2 when you reach 12th level in this class. So 12th level, there's no level prerequisite at this. At 12th level it comes to +2. So the maximum is +2 at 12th level. And I don't think, based on how it says that unless specifically described, you cannot retake infusions. So in this case, I think this one doesn't require a retake, but it scales automatically when you reach level 12. And I'm in 12th level in this class, so it solves any questions about is it character class or is it class level, character level or class level. So maximum is +2. I think this is just standard stuff. Alright, enhanced weapon sounds pretty much the same. Item, a simple or martial weapon. The magic weapon grants +1 to attack and damage made with it. This bonus increases to +2 when you reach the 12th level in this class. Okay, fine, standard stuff. Why does it not allow infusion to go up to +3, which is the maximum in 5th edition? I don't know exactly why, because 12th level is in the midpoint to high level. Would it make the Artificer too powerful if they allow +3 at say level 17? Not sure about that. I'm not sure if they have a good reason not to allow +3. Yeah, but we'll just take it as it is. I mean, that's fine. +2 at level 12, that's fine. Many-handed pouch. Prerequisite is 4th level Artificer. Item is 2 to 5 pouches. The infused pouches all share one interdimensional space of the same capacity as a single pouch. Thus, reaching into any of the pouches allow access to the same storage space. A pouch operates as long as it is within 100 miles of another one of the pouches. The pouch is otherwise empty and won't accept any contents. If this infusion ends, the item is stored in the shared space, move into one of the pouches, determined at random. The rest of the pouches become empty. Uh, so I'm guessing, yeah, okay, this is interesting. This is one way it specifically mentions that you have a specific number of pouches, which is 2 to 5. So it's basically a pouch of, it's like a mini bag of holding. It's like a pouch of holding that's connected, that is accessible by different pouches rather than one bag in one bag of holding. Interesting idea, and the pouch's capacity is not that great. By raw, a pouch can only carry up to one fifth of cubic foot or 6 pounds of gear. So that's not really a lot. And uh, would there be any great uses on this? Abusive uses? Not really. Not that I see it. It's great to, as a party treasury. Rather than one guy holding all the money, can be it's in a pouch where everyone can access it. Fine, but would an artificer want to spend an infusion known just to get this ability at 4th level again? Not doesn't look as powerful as it sounds, or as it's designed right now. I wouldn't mind taking this something at first, as a first infusion, like make it a lower, like the prerequisite doesn't really ring very necessary for me. Uh, and I mean it really it all comes down to what you can fit into a pouch. It's only as powerful as that. Alright, Radiant Weapon. Prerequisite, 8th level Artificer. Item, a simple or martial weapon, requires attunement. Okay, fine. So bear in mind that Enhanced Weapon, earlier, 4th level, does not require attunement. I believe that's the case for most weapons of +1. Yeah, weapon +1s and +2s do not require attunement. So Radiant Weapon is trying to be is a bit limited in that sense already because they have the attunement prerequisite. But let's see what it does. And talking for 2 hours plus without drinking is really a feat by itself. This magic weapon grants a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with it. While holding it, the wielder can take a bonus action to cause it to shed bright light in a 30-foot radius and dim light for addition to 30 feet. The wielder can extinguish the light as a bonus action. Okay, so it's a torch. It's a plus. Yeah, there probably is a magic weapon that does something similar. I can't remember what was it called. Was it Flame Tongue? Helm of... Well, yeah, okay, well, sure, but the Flame Tongue... Okay, the Flame Tongue doesn't have magical damage. Doesn't have +1 or +2, but it does shed bright light 40 feet and dim light 80 feet. And it deals extra 2 damage. 2d6 fire damage. Maybe there was something else. Maybe holy weapon? No, sunblade. I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's a sunblade. It's a mini version of a sunblade. The sunblade does 2 + 2 to attack and damage rolls. Deals extra radiant damage, 1d8 radiant damage to undead. And it can shed 15-foot radius dim light, bright light, and 15-foot additional dim light. So it's like it's a mini version of sunblade. Sounds, no wonder it sounded a little familiar. All right, what else? What else does a radiant weapon do? As a reaction immediately after being hit by a melee attack, the wielder can cause the attacker to be blinded until the end of the attacker's next turn, unless the attacker succeeds on a Constitution saving throw against your spell DC. Once used, this reaction can't be used again until the wielder finishes a short or long rest. Okay, so there's the additional blinding effect, which I don't think any of the magic items right now have within the DMG. I don't think Holy Weapon is a spell, but it doesn't have that. Well, yeah, I guess Holy Weapon is a spell, 5th level spell for clerics and paladins. That's something similar about the blinding effect requiring a Constitution saving throw, but definitely more punishing than what the reading weapon does. So, an interesting infusion. not to say the least. It's an 8 level infusion, and it requires attunement. So I guess you kind of expect some funky abilities like this to I mean, like infusions to have these kind of funky abilities. They can do such a thing. Although it's a little bit a bit very funky in my taste, but I guess that gives a lot of room for designers to create even more funkiness in the future, more weirder infusions to do very very special things. All right, replicate magic item. Prerequisites see below. Using this infusion, you replicate a particular magic item. You can learn this infusion multiple times. Each time you do so, choose a different magic item that you can make with it, picking from the replicable magic items tables below. If a table has a level in its title, you must be of at least that level in this class to choose an item from the table. If in the tables and items entry tells you whether the item requires attunement, see the item description in the Dungeon Master's Guide for more information about it, including the type of object required for its making. Oh, okay. I don't think the Dungeon Master's Guide tells you what object it requires for its making, but I guess you're supposed to deduce that from like if it's like a bag of holding, like, then you will need like a bag. Like yeah. So let's see how the table is split up first. So basically there are 3 tiers. There's replicable magical items that you can just do without any prerequisite levels. Then there's another tier of replicable magical items that requires 12th level Artificer. And then you have another last table which is replicable magical items that require 16th level Artificer. So there's 3 tiers, and I'm guessing it's might be tied to the rarity of the magic item, possibly. I'm not sure about that. Uh, but it's probably a good guide to show you the power level of the replicable magical items. So let's start with the first one that doesn't require any level prerequisite, and also to note none of those in the first table do not require attunement as well. Alright, so you have Alchemy Jar, you have Bag of Holding, Cap of Water Breathing, Cloak of the Manta Ray, Goggles of Night, Lantern of Revealing, Rope of Climbing, Sending Stones, Wand of Magic Detection, and Wand of Secrets. So let me just pick a few random one of these to see if they have any difference in rarity. I believe they do. I believe Cloak of the Manta Ray is it's an uncommon wondrous item. And compare that with, say, Sending Stones. Sending Stones are uncommon, so maybe it's the Goggles of Night. I think that's uncommon too. It's uncommon, yeah. So I guess there's nothing here that's the common magical items, and based on what I'm seeing right now, I don't think any of them are from the Zenata's Guide of Common Item List. So you're not gonna see any of those funky ones there, and I'm quite sure the reason they're doing this is because they don't want to force players to buy Zenata's Guide, just so that they can use the Artificer. It'd be a really bad move, a real dick move if there were like items in the list that were only in Zenata's Guide. Like if the whole table only had items from the Zenata's Guide, I think that would be a really really bad move. Let me see. I'm guessing so. The first tier seems to be items of the uncommon variety. So none of it, and they're all mostly wondrous items, except for the 2 wands, which is magic detection, which is uncommon, and Wand of Secrets, which is also uncommon. So right, so basically the first table is basically all the uncommon stuff. Now let's move on to the second table, which requires a prerequisite level of 12, which is pretty far from when you can start casting infusions at level 2. Level 2, yep. So that's 10 levels later you can start infusing different magical items. And bear in mind, based on what it says here, you have to take 1 infusion for 1 item. So given the choices there are in tables, you're gonna have a really hard time to pick which item that you want to be able to infuse, and have the same infusion rules. I mean, still have the same infusion limitations apply, which is the number of items you can infuse, uh, but they last indefinitely. All right. So the second table has boots of Elvenkind, boots of striding and springing, boots of the Winterlands, boots braces of archery, boots of shielding, cloak of Elvenkind, cloak of protection, eyes of charming, eyes of the eagle, gauntlets of ogre power, glove of missile snaring, gloves of swimming and climbing, gloves of thievery, head of disguise, headband of intellect, helm of telepathy, medallion of thoughts, parab of wound closure, pipes of haunting, pipes of the sewers, quiver of Elona, ring of jumping, ring of mind shielding, ring of water walking, slippers of spider climbing, winged boots. These sound to me on the surface like rare items. Winged boots is uncommon, requires attunement, and rings of okay. So let me just take an example of what items that does not require attunement. So the ring of water walking does not require attunement, which is the same in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So I have a feeling that these are not exceptions to what's in the DMG. It's more like a reprinting of the facts. So Medallion of Thoughts requires attunement. Also requires attunement in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And you're seeing here, these are still uncommon magic items. Medallion of Thought is uncommon. Ring of Water Walking is uncommon. Let's try Quiver Elona. Quiver Elona is also uncommon. Does not require attunement according to the Dungeon Master's Guide. Let's see if that's the case in here. Yeah. So on the surface, it seems to me like the attunement is the same as what's in the DMG. The Artificer does not seem to make an exception to this. So, I mean, just double check. I'm not gonna like check every single magical item. But that's my gut reaction. My gut feeling right now is that whether it requires attunement or not, just check the DMG. It's likely that it's going to be the same, unless there are certain exceptions that I hope someone finds out and points out about it. Maybe I'll just do one last one just to make sure. And level 12 seems to be still on the power level of uncommon, the rarity of uncommon. Alright, so Gauntlets of Ogre Power requires attunement for the Artificer, requires attunement in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and also uncommon. So I guess these are the more famous magical items that you want to infuse at level 12. To get something like Gauntlet of Ogre Power at level 12, I mean for free. Not sure about that. Like if I was a DM and I have an Artificer in my party, do I withhold giving out the magical items that are in this list? Because on the off chance that the Artificer actually does decide to take the infusion, and therefore I will not like devaluate this infusion because I give him an actual Gauntlet of Ogre Power, or maybe allow them to buy it at some point. Yeah, that'll be something to think about as a DM. I think, like, how do you treat Artificers with these special infusions of replicating magical items? Alright, so let's go to the last table, at 16th level for the Artificer. He has Amulet of Health, Belt of Giant Strength, Boots of Levitation, Boots of Speed, Braces of Defense, Cloak of the Bat, Dimensional Shackles, Gem of Seeking, Horn of Blasting, Ring of Free Action, Ring of Protection, Ring of the Ram. So all the items in this list are all requires attunement except for Dimensional Shackles, which I believe does not require attunement in the Dungeon Master's Guide as well. Yeah, does not require attunement, and also Horn of Blasting, which I also don't believe requires attunement. It'd be weird if it requires it. Yeah, it doesn't require attunement. So everything else here requires attunement. So this is where I think the rare stuff starts to come in. So the highest level, the highest rarity of the Artificer can infuse is rare items, which makes a lot of sense. Like you don't want them to start making very rare items for free. And it's like 16 level, which is at the close, it's close to the proximity of their height of power. Maybe another thing you want to pay attention to because of the prerequisite level. So at level 16, how many infused items can the artificer make at level 16? It's five items already. He's already hit. That's when he hits his golden mark. Uh, Level 12, he can have infused at 4 items, but he's already reached that number of items at level 11 already. So he gets it a little bit late to make. I'm guessing like if you already have if you reach 4 infused items at level 11, just wait one more level and you can start making like different stuff. Start taking your infusions at level 12. Okay. So what else is there? Alright, so the next one is resistant armor. Prerequisite 8th level item, a suit of armor, requires attunement. While wearing this armor, a creature has resistance to one of the following damage types, which you choose when you infuse the item: acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, or thunder. And I think that's all the damage types. I don't think there's any damage type being left behind. Let me just so there's 13 types, and let me just list them down here. Acid, cold, fire, force, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, thunder. Okay, so there is there are missing damage types, which is unsurprisingly bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing. So you can create a resistant armor to this. You can create resistant armor that is resistant to all except the main weapon attacks, which is probably a good exception. I mean, it's probably good to not make those damage types available to be resisted. Uh, yeah, so I have no real problems with that one. I think that's fair. All right, returning weapon, which I believe there is an equivalent of that in the Agile Master Spell. Alright, so returning weapon item, a simple or martial weapon with the thrown property. This magic weapon grants +1 to attack bonus made with it, and it returns to the wielder's hand immediately after it's used to make a ranged attack. So why not pick this over enhanced weapon? Because enhanced weapon is scaled, so you get a +2 automatically when it's level 12, and returning weapon does not scale, but it does give you that extra ability of returning it back to your hand if you throw it away. Uh, and this one doesn't have a level prerequisite, so it can be done very early on to give to someone like, I don't know, like a barbarian or something like that. You get like, here's your hand axe and you can throw it away as many times as you want. And it's +1. Just to be a bit nitpicky, like for example, okay, so enhanced weapon does say that this magic weapon, so it does bypass damage resistance or damage immunity caused by non-magical weapons, which I believe would, yeah, returning weapon also has the same line, this magic weapon. So they are magical weapons in terms of purpose of bypassing damage resistance. All right, so we are closing to the end. The last thing right now would be the spell list, and there's actually a new spell inside the spell list. So I think I'm just going to go through the spell list first, and then I'm going to wrap it up with going through that one new spell. Oh, and there's actually a sidebar for multi-classing, but yeah, I'll wrap it up. We're reaching the end very, very soon. So let's just look at the spell list of the new Artificer class. And I don't know is there any benefit of comparing that with the previous version, but let's just do that for the sake of fun. And let's just make this video as long as possible. Not that it's long enough already. Okay. So like I said before, the spell list is different between the old and the new Artificer class, because the new Artificer goes up to 5th level, whereas the old one does only goes up to 4th level. Alright, so and also that the new Artificer has cantrips, whereas the old Artificer does not have cantrips. So what are the cantrips? So the cantrips are going to be a very big part to the Artificer because of the spells. Because it has the artillery has the wand thing, which allows it to keep up to 2 cantrips, 1 cantrip or 2 cantrips in the wand for free, that he doesn't need to know. And then there's the right cantrip for the job. So basically, he has like whole list of cantrips to play around with, of knowing which one he wants to change to at a certain time. Uh, yeah, I think that's why the cantrips has a lot more usage compared to any of the other classes. So the cantrips are Acid Splash, Dancing Lights, Firebolt, Guidance, Light, Mage Hand, Mending Message, Poison Spray, Precipitation, Ray of Frost, Resistance, Shocking Grasp, Spare the Dying, Thorn Whip. So this looks to me like, is it following a particular class's cantrip list? Because Precipitation is a wizard thing. Poison Spray Message. So let me just see what does the wizard cantrip look like. Wizard spell list, sorry. Wizard spells. So comparing that to the wizards, Acid Splash, Dancing Lights, is there Firebolt, Light? Light is there, Mage Hand, right, fine. Mending is there, Message is there, Poison Spray is there, Precipitation, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, Spare the Dying. The wizard does not have Spare the Dying. The cleric should have Spare the Dying, and Thorn Whip, which the wizard does not have as well. I think that's a druid spell, Thorn Whip. Thorn Whip is a druid spell, and Spare the Dying is a cleric paladin spell. Clerics. Yeah, it's a cleric spell. Alright, so it's a mixture of wizard, mostly wizard, with a bit of cleric, and druid. And the Artificer spell list is definitely way smaller than the wizard spell list. It doesn't have things like charm, doesn't have the illusion spells, doesn't have friend, and it's not something I would want the Artificer to have. And I guess it sort of distinguishes themselves that their spells, their spells are still a product of being cast from something, rather than being able to cast it as a spell to influence somebody unknowingly. No illusion. There are no illusion spells. All the Xanatar spells are not there, for obvious reasons. And yeah. I guess there were some spells in the wizard list that would have made sense in the Artificer spell list, but maybe it makes it a bit too powerful to have them, like Blade Ward, Booming Blade, Green Flame Blade, Chill Touch. No, Chill Touch is not there as well, which is a bit odd. Frostbite, which I think this because it's a Xanatar thing. Mold Earth, I think that's Xanatar as well. Ray of Frost is there, right? Thunderclap, I think it's a Xanatar thing. True Strike is also not in the Artificer spell list. Which actually I think True Strike actually has a lot of makes a bit more sense for the Artificer than the wizard spell. But what's not there is not there. Alright, so the first level spell of Artificer is Alarm as a ritual, Arcane Weapon. So that's the new spell created for the Artificer, which we'll look into at the end. Cure Wounds, Detect Magic as a ritual. I'm not sure what's the meaning of the ritual parentheses here. Is it indicating that the Artificer only knows the ritual version of the spell, or these are spells that has ritual because they have ritual casting, so they can cast this spell as ritual. I'm more likely to incline towards the latter, in the sense that they know the Alarm spell as a spell, and it's just to indicate that this is a ritual spell as well, so they can use ritual casting to cast it. All right, disguise self, expectations retreat, false life, grease, identify, jump, long strider, sanctuary, shield of faith. So it's a very I think it was kind of the same in 3.5 when they had the artificer as well. The spell list tends to be a mixture of different classes like cleric and wizard, or arcane and divine magic if you want to call it that way, which is they seem to be sticking to that for the artificer as well. So I don't mind. I really don't mind because it stays with the flavor, and might make it more versatile to compared to other classes. So second level spells, aid. Does the wizard get aid? I don't think the wizard gets aid at all. Yeah, the wizard doesn't get aid. So that's a cleric spell. Alter Surf, Arcane Lock, Blur, Continual Flame, Dark Vision, Enhanced Ability, and Large Views. Heat Metal, Invisibility, Lesser Restoration, Levitate, Magic Mouth, Magic Weapon, Protection from Poison, Rope Trick, Sea Invisibility, and Spider Climb. Okay, now you have to remember, now that we're in second level spell, you have to remember that there was this class feature that allows them to store spells and use that as many times. I think there was a spell storing ability, and that's the general general artificer ability. So yeah, first or second level spell. So remember, so all the spells that I mentioned up to this point, at 17th level, at 18th level, the artificer can cast them basically 5 to what was it 8 to 10 times by putting it into an object. Yeah, and it can be used by anyone. It can be used by the artificer as well as anyone. It says a creature. So are there spells in these tools in the spell list of 1 to 2 or even cantrips that you don't want them to be casting 8 to 10 times at 18th level? I guess I can see some, like for example, like Lesser Restoration. It just makes the entire alchemist ability obsolete. Why force myself to only cast like one free Lesser Restoration? Why force myself to cast free Lesser Restorations with an alchemist supply when I can just put it onto an object and just pass it to anyone and let them use it 8 to 10 times, and I can just renew that within like a long rest. Anything else? Dark vision. I guess dark vision. That just gives everyone dark vision. Magic weapon, sure. Magic weapon. Magic weapon at 18 level being cast randomly around makes all the infusions of enhanced weapon look really bad but enhanced weapon still has a +2, which I don't think magic weapon scales or requires a higher level spell slot. Yeah, if you use it needs a spell slot of 4 or higher to become level +2, but in this case it just becomes a +1. Heat metal, invisibility 8 to 10 times may sound great, but bear in mind this is 18th level, so most things are going to probably have like true sight at some point, or tremor sense or something, or different kind of senses to detect invisible creature. So that's not that great as it sounds like. Maybe identify for free. Although yeah, that's probably something that the spell that class feature should have explained, that what happens to material cost is involved. I don't think they explained that. Yeah, it says here, choosing one first or second level spell from the artificer spell list that requires 1 action to cast. You don't need to have the spell prepared, but it doesn't say anything about the material components, which presumably means that you do need to prepare the spell components. But that's crazy in the sense that if I put an identify spell into the spell storing item, do I have to only cast the spell once and only spend up 1 pearl, or do I have to cast the spell in times equal to the amount of times it can be used? The text, the raw text doesn't really sound like it would, but there has to be some clarification, I think, into how spell storing item interacts with the rules of material components that has a cost. Yeah, so if you're watching this, designers, please clarify that. All right. So let's move on to the third level spell. Third level spell, they have Blink, Dispel Magic, Elemental Weapon, Fly, Gaseous Form, Clip of Warding, Haste, Protection from Energy, Revivify, Water Breathing Ritual, and Water Walk Ritual. I think this is probably the closest spell list that is to the wizard spells. I think everything here is available in the wizard spell, and none of it is from a cleric spells or something like that. Let me just have a quick look. And don't forget that these are the spells in the Artificer spell list, not including the ones that are in their subclass spell list. So there are definitely spells in the subclass spell list that is not in the Artificer spell list. Like for example, Fireball. Alright. Blink. Blink is there, Dispel Magic is there, Elemental Weapon is not. Elemental Weapon is not a wizard spell. I think then it might be a paladin spell. Fly is there. Gaseous Form is there, Clip of Warding is there, Haste is there, Protection from Energy. Protection from Energy is there, right? Revivify is not there, obviously, for clerics. Water Breathing is there, but Water Walk is not there. Right. Interesting. So it's still a lot of combination of spells from clerics as well. Where is Elemental Weapon from, actually? Is it I don't remember it being a cleric spell either. Might be just a paladin spell. Yeah, it's a paladin spell. It's only a paladin spell. So that's interesting. A spell list combination that comes from cleric, wizard, paladin, druid. Alright. Fourth level, we have Arcane Eye, Fabricate, Freedom of Movement, Dormant Secret Chest, Modern King's Faithful Harm, Modern King's Private Sanctum, Orthodox Resident Sphere, Stone Shape, Stone Skin. Is this the spell list that has nothing from anything else? Arcane Eye, Fabricate, Freedom of Movement. Freedom of Movement is not a wizard spell. Right, the almost secret chest, right, it's there. Water King's Faithful Hound and Sanctum, right there. Orthodox Resident Spear, Stone Shape, Stone Skin. Okay, I never figured that Freedom of Movement was not a wizard spell. So I'm probably cleric then. Bard, cleric, druid, right? Ranger. Okay, all right. And fifth level, animate objects. Big Beast Hand, Creation, Greater Restoration, Wall of Stone. Very short list. All right. So, are there any oddities so far in terms of the spell list? No, other than them coming from different classes. How does it affect? I mean, their role in the game? There's a good mix of utility spells with defensive spells. Not that many attack spells, but Animate Object, to be honest, is one of the best attack spells there is. Stone spells. Their longest list seems to be from level 2. Level 1, level 2, which is, very... All spell lists are like that. The first few levels are always the longest. I actually have a table to prove it, but I'm not gonna bring it up now because it's not relevant. Yeah. So okay, I think let's just get back to that last spell that they created, which is called Arcane Weapon. First level transmutation, casting time 1 bonus action. One of those rare spells, which is cost a bonus action. Range stealth, components VS, duration concentration up to 1 hour. You channel arcane energy into one simple or martial weapon you're holding and choose one damage type: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, and thunder. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's not all the 13 types. There are definitely some missing ones. Until the spell ends, you deal an extra 1d6 damage of the chosen type to any target you hit with the weapon. Okay, that's quite a lot. If the weapon isn't magical, it becomes a magic weapon for the sale situation, which is actually very good. I think the only other class that has a magic weapon at first level is the druid, which is for Shelley or whatever you pronounce it. And it doesn't have Shelley is definitely way weaker. Well, slightly weaker, depending on how you see it. Alright. At the bonus action, can you change the damage type choosing from the option below? At higher level, when you cast a spell using a spell slot of third or level, you can maintain concentration on the spell for up to 8 hours. So Arcane Weapon is actually a very good spell. It's actually a very good spell because of its versatility in terms you can change the damage type. So it's really good on those creatures that has resistance or immunities or vulnerabilities even. And you can change it on the fly as a bonus action. Yep. You can concentrate. It's concentration, which is a bummer. Uh, uh, I mean, like, if you are planning to cast some other spells, you definitely don't want concentration spells. Uh, but it can last between 1 hour to 8 hours. 1 to 8 hours if you use a higher spell slot, and you only need the best version of it comes at the third level slot. Like that's just the best. One bonus action. So it's just basically it's Ledge, but it can only be cast on self rather than touch. Same components VS doesn't require an M, and you deal one additional D6 damage. So that's actually quite a bit. That's actually quite a lot, and it affects a simple martial weapon. So yeah, that's actually a potential damage. I mean, for the first lower levels when you are starting out as an artificer, you're probably going to be doing quite a bit of damage, other than the rogue, which is that's good to know. And that brings me up to that question about that whole magic weapon thing. I was talking about propelling magic items. What is it? Was it in this version? No, I think it's not. I think it's not in this version anymore. Oh, it is in Arcane Armament. So Arcane Armament, yeah, that brings up the question of Arcane Armament. If I cast Arcane Weapon, it counts as a magic weapon, and therefore I can use Arcane Armament with it, and I don't need a magical item to get that. So yeah, that actually makes Arcane Weapon a really great spell. Is it too broken for a first level spell? Let's see what its compare is. I have a feeling not as badly as we think it is. First level spells. Anything that increases weapon that does not do as much damage. I mean, let's not compare it with things like Burning Hands or Magic Missile. Let's look for something that can affect weapon attacks. Hunter's Mark, I guess. Yeah, Hunter's Mark. Shearing Smite. I guess that's a level 1 spell, but it's a paladin thing. So, Thunderous Smite, fine. Wrathful Smites. Okay, the Smite spells. So the Smite spells gives 1 extra D6. Fire, I'm guessing it depends on which one you pick. Hunter's Mark gives 1 extra D6 of damage, but it does not make it magical. So Arcane Weapon is actually better than Hunter's Mark, except without the whole advantage to perception and survival. And I mean, Arcane Weapon doesn't require the switching of the mark thing because it's marked onto the weapon, not onto the target. So yeah, actually Arcane Weapon is a pretty sweet spell, and works in tandem with a lot of things that the Artificer can do. So alright, so we're coming to 3 hours now, and we're coming to the last part of the Artificer document, which is the optional rules for multiclassing. So if your group uses the optional rule on multiclassing in the Player's Handbook, page 163, here's what you need to know if you choose Artificer as one of your classes. Ability score minimum as a multi-class character, you must have at least an intelligence of 13 to take a level in this class. Proficiencies gained if the Artificer isn't your initial class, the proficiency you gain when you take your first level Artificer, light armor, medium armor, shields, thieves tools, tinker tools. Extra attack. The Arcane Armament feature doesn't give you an additional attack if you also have the extra attack feature. Fine. Spell slots. At half your levels, rounded down, in the Artificer class to the appropriate levels from the other classes to given your available spell slots. So that's just your usual stat, right? Like what does multiclassing entail for being an Artificer, which covers the basics. Extra attack, spell casting, proficiencies as well. Yeah. So that's the entirety of Artificer Revisited. Uh, what do I think of it overall? There are definitely some weird spots here and there that like that I've mentioned. Healing is better. The alchemist heals better than the cleric of life. Uh, yeah, some odd progression issues of in terms of numbers. But I think so far nothing game breaking as yet, other than the cantrip, which that's the only thing I think that really sticks out to me from the read. Uh, Everything else seems to be, not entirely remarkable. It's a different class to play as a support class. Maybe something in tune with like a bard-ish way. But the design is very interesting. I'll definitely give it that. And like I said from earlier on, like even after reading the entire thing, uh, it's really sticking closer to the Eberron's version of the Artificer, which is what I was looking for when I first saw the Artificer introduced to 5e, and this one definitely hits closer to home. Um, any problems in the subclasses? I guess the alchemist is supposed to be the potion guy, and the artillerist is supposed to be the wand guy. Uh, I don't know. I think I have a feeling that there's something missing for the artificer subclass, but I can't really put my finger onto it. Uh, Maybe there was something that was more focused on the wondrous items, but I think that's more basically covered in the artillerist. Uh, s- no, sorry, covered in the infusion. So the infusions is also one of my favorite parts of this class, compared to the previous version of it. Uh, yeah, extra cantrips. And having the certain and I mean the spell casting using tools is also very interesting to me. I guess if there's really something that I would have liked to see is tools playing a bigger role, or modification some certain class features that allows modification of tools, or using of tools to to do more things. Like why not like maybe just put an expansion of the tools in Zenata's guide into the base rules of the Artificer. I wouldn't say copy it word for word, but have a basic. I guess a basic idea would be just to make tools more useful as an Artificer rather than uh, just being a spellcasting focus in the end. Um, if there were I mean there are definitely things that requires clarification. There are definitely things that seem all too powerful at first. Might need some work on that. uh, but based on the reception that's been given so far, I mean, on Reddit and what I've been looking through, it seems a lot of people are taking it as very meh. This is like the worst version. This is like the not a lot of people are liking this Artificer class compared to the previous version, which I would say that previous version, especially the gunsmith, was a bit overpowered in my opinion. Uh, so what am I expecting to see in the next iteration of this Artificer class? I'm not sure. I think the direction they're going for right now as it is seems to be where I want it to go. Uh, it's more of just tweaking it to the right bits. Will this be the new Artificer in Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron? I also don't know. I have a strong feeling it most likely will be. Uh, but I still think that this class definitely can be added with more value. It can definitely be more interesting to play, more and more interestingly designed with more experiments with the current structure of 5e. So I think yeah, it's already 3 hours for this video. I think this is all my thoughts on reading the uh, Artificer Revisited. I'll definitely be submitting this as my into the survey. I hope someone from Wizards actually bothers to read 3 hours, spend 3 hours to go through this entire video. If not, well, I mean, no loss for me and no loss for them. Definitely would like to hear if Wizards will be using this version of the Artificer. I think I'm pretty much fine as it is, except for a few things that just needs tweaking, like the cantrip and the healing. But other than that, I think I'm pretty much happy to use it as it is. Uh, I mean, except for maybe just a few more infusions included. That's all. Yeah. So, yeah. So I guess that'll be all for me for today. I'll be probably doing another video very shortly just to give you guys an update on the channel, what's been happening, and the reason for my silence and hiatus. But I'm really trying to get back into doing more videos and getting back into swing of things. I'm overdue for another Audi Abyss video. So yeah, yeah, I'll just leave all that side chatter for the next video. So that'll be all from me. This is the Questing GM signing out for now. I'll see you